You know, every week I think it's gonna auto change the title on YouTube and it doesn't. And then this time I was prepared to change the title and it actually updated it for me. Go figure. You just make sure that reflects in opening it on the browser. It did update on the browser as well. That's like, what is the difference? I mean, I'm happy that it updated. I would rather it update for me. But why does it only do it sometimes? I'm not gonna promote it as, I don't know how long I'm gonna stream for, so I don't want to promote it like as crazy. We'll do it up. We'll do it up big on Thursday for sure. But we're gonna chill and do what we can. I didn't fully prepare anything for today, which also had me kind of like not wanting to stream, but I was like, you know what? I haven't streamed in like 4 days. We've been doing well. I'll just stream for like an hour or two. Read some old stuff. See what happens. What old stuff? I do not know. I am kind of getting more into the Soldier's Crest stuff again. So maybe there's some stuff we could read there. It might be a little spoilery. Yo, what's up, Mistral? Like, I wrote some side stories that I have no idea if they will ever see the light of day. How long is this one? This one's only like 25 pages. Like, compared to what we've been doing, that's light work. That's light work. I wrote like a superhero, I wrote a superhero thing too. Um, so two of the stories take place after, they take place between book 3 and book 4, but I can't remember how much of it is like straight up spoilers. I mean, obviously it's spoilery, but I don't know if you guys care about all that. Plus, there's stories that might change, you know? What are these? I wrote a bunch of superhero stories set in the Soldier's Crest universe. And these were meant to take place like after book 5, I think. One's like a Batman kind of thing. One is like a Flash thing. I think the Batman-esque one is not that bad. This wasn't even supposed to be a Soldier's Crest story. I think I wrote this for a... I think I wrote this for a contest. The format is all weird. Yeah, there's a lot going on. I just write a bunch of random stuff. We can read these superhero ones are really short. Well, not really short, but like 20 pages, 10 pages, and 15 pages. I don't know. We just want to read random stuff. I wrote a really the Mira one. I have two side stories that take place between book 3 and 4. One is Mira related, and one is like Mira related. We can read these for fun. They honestly might have spoilers though. I wrote 30 pages of the Mira one. I don't know how long I'm gonna stream for, so we could start with the Mira one. There's there's a character in the Mirror one you might like because I think he's more along the lines of what I think you thought Rapez was gonna become. Um, so I think you might like that character. I'm not gonna tell you which character it is though. I want to see. I want to see if you just like him on your own. But there is a character in there I think you might like. I'm kind of sad about Rapez. I know. I'm sorry. When you were getting attached to him, I was like, she isn't gonna like him. Like, she isn't gonna continue. She isn't gonna continue to like him. I already like knew that. I can read some stuff and then I can explain. I can explain how I intended these things to fit in because I mean, like, even if these ever see the light of day, it won't be for a really long time, and things will probably change a lot. I was thinking about that today. I was like, he knew, yeah. Yeah, I definitely was just like, there's no way she continues to like him because he's not meant to be like a very likable character. But I mean, honestly, like, I never intended him to be that likable in the prequel either. But I enjoyed writing him a lot more in the prequel than when you see him later because he's just kind of like a jerk and like a coward later. Um, and he does some pretty terrible things. Like you don't even know the other stuff yet. You don't even know um, the other nonsense I cooked up for that character. You will one day though, hopefully. Once I write the other Mira stories. Okay. Fantasy distraction wise, I managed my time very poorly and I don't know. I kind of just want to take like some time off in March for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So I think what I might try to do is release the Sabia saga um March 1st. And then just take like the rest of the month off. Maybe write a little bit of the Natalai like continuation of that. Um Mostly because I just want to use the Rima art. Did I didn't show it anywhere. Hold on. I did in the community post, but it was like a teaser. I could show you the Rima art. How do I do this? Add a source image. Let me switch to the writing capture first. Switch this. But yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking. Because what happened was like I kind of fell behind really bad. And instead of stressing myself out for no reason when the videos are not really getting a lot of views, I'd rather just like take some time, enjoy Final Fantasy, try to make content for. I need to try to make some content for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm not really sure what that's gonna look like, but I really want to do that. And then how do I shrink this image? It's not letting me. There we go. She'll just be floating over my head for a second. Or next to my face. Hello? This is the Rima art. Hello? This is the Rima art that I got made for the miniseries. It's probably, I don't know, let me see how the quality is for you guys. Hold on. It's not too bad. You don't get to see a lot of the details. So I asked the artist to make it look like she has grainy skin, like that her skin is like sand. So when you see the thumbnail especially, you see it. But when you see the actual video when it comes out, if you look at it, her skin like on her face and her legs and her arms, it looks like sand. It looks really grainy. The effect is really cool. My queen. Yeah, it looks a lot cooler when you could actually like look at it up close, but came out really cool. Very Egyptian themed, very Yu-Gi-Oh. It's a very Yu-Gi-Oh kind of look to her, but yeah. So I definitely want to use that before we take our break. So I'm gonna do that, and then I think the miniseries that comes out after that is gonna have I want to get like a picture of Natalie like in the arena with like her hand up, but like you know, like there's just like fire everywhere. You know, like there's fire on the ground, there's fire on her like fist. You know, so I think that'll be the second part of the miniseries photo. That's what I'm thinking right now, unless something else comes to me while I'm writing it. But that miniseries, I didn't start writing any of it yet. But I am going to. What I want to do is I want to. It might be a little confusing, but I want to name every episode like Natalie versus, and then whoever she's fighting in that episode. So it's very like gladiator driven, very fight heavy, I guess. But that's my plans for that though, because it's you know, she's a martial artist and she's like one of the best fighters on the planet, so it'll probably be a lot of fighting. You write a ton of fights? I do write a lot of fights. Yeah, there's a lot in book 2 also. There are a lot in book 2 also. I don't think as many as book 1 though. I mean it's a lot. It's still a lot. Okay. Let's read this Mira one. So the Mira one, man, I really hope. I'm just gonna read it. If there's spoilers, there's spoilers. I'm sorry. Um, I don't remember it being very spoilery though, because I don't think I was that far along in writing book 2 yet. So like when I wrote this, I also was not sure how we get to this point. It's just a matter of I knew this is where I wanted to take the story eventually. So I don't think there's any spoilers because I didn't even know what was going to happen yet. But the basic premise is like real quick, I didn't really have anything to really talk about fantasy distractions other than maybe taking the break, releasing the Sabia's saga stuff. So that's all I really had to like announce per se. But yeah, so the Soldier's Crest, the main premise was like book 1, 2, and 3 is like Valak's story, and then like the demons take over everything. And once the demons take over everything, we kind of transition into like it being more Marcus's story because Marcus is fighting the demons all the time. Like he's like their main adversary. Like as a badass, yeah, like is awesome. Dude, she has probably my favorite fight scene I've ever written. The fight scene that she has in book 2 is I've been thinking about that fight scene forever. There's another fight scene that I always played out in my head with her and Synthro that didn't make it into the books. So maybe it will at some point. Wait, they automatically added that Genshin Impact. So I signed up for a Genshin Impact sponsor thing. And Stream Elements just put it into my thing already. I did not know. Yeah, like is pretty awesome. Plasma Grapes, what's up? Hello. We're about to read some of my old stuff that I wrote as like a side story to my main book series. So that's what we're doing right now. It's about 30 pages. Not really. It's like 27, I guess. I don't even remember there being a prologue. There's a prologue to this story, apparently. I like that she rushed him and didn't care who he was. She was like, I'm taking you out. How much did you scroll through, Mistral? You alright? Just relaxing? Relaxing's good. I had a busy day today. I don't know how long we're going to stream. I got up like way earlier than I normally do, and I had a physical, so I had to get blood drawn, and then I got an EKG, and my doctor was like, I want you to come back and get, I think, what's called like an echo sonogram or something to take a picture of my heart. And I was like, okay. And then he kept mentioning it. He mentioned it like 2 more times. I was like, did you find anything? Is something wrong? But he was like, no, everything's fine. So I was like, all right. And then I figured like just the next time I go for like a checkup or physical or whatever, we'd do the echo thing. And as soon as I get to the counter, they're like, so you're coming back Thursday? And I was like, no, do I need to come back Thursday? So as far as I know, I'm okay, but I don't know. I guess we'll find out when I'm not going back Thursday. I'm going back. I don't know when I'm going back. I scrolled through the whole thing. It has less chapters than the first book. Yeah, it's shorter than the first book, but it's hard for me to judge because like the manuscript for the first book on the computer is like about the same amount of pages, but when it got printed out into the book, it was like 500 pages. So I don't know. I don't I don't think they're that far off, but I think it is shorter. If that makes sense. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's shorter though. All right, so yeah, so real quick, Soldier's Crest Book 1, 2, and 3 follow the story of Valak on the main continent of Chroma. I might go into that on the prologue. I don't know. And then this story takes place between book 3 and book 4 when the demons are kind of like starting to take over the world, like not just the main continent. They're taking over like everything. So that's where we're at. I'm just gonna start reading. I do not remember much of this. I remember liking it. There's only 30 pages. It's definitely not done. But we're gonna check this out. Then I have another side story set during the same exact time as this. And then I have this Rhea story that I wrote that may not ever actually exist in the canon of my story, but it's still fun. And then I have some random superhero stuff. All right, let's start. This is the prologue for what I called A Soldier's Crest World in Pieces, is what it's supposed to be called. I don't know if it'll ever release or see the light of day, but here we go. I also wrote this one. I think I wrote this before book 2, so the writing might not be up to snuff. I guess we'll find out. All right, prologue. The sky was empty, not a cloud, a bird, nor a demon present in the tranquil space above them. The rainfall that had made their... Is that Monster Ward? What's up, Monster Ward? I get the sound alert and then there's a delay. But I just know it's you when it's that one. The rainfall that had made their commute to this island an arduous one had all but vanished were it not for the mud beneath their feet. There had only been 2 of them on this expedition, one a guiltless petite bard, whose cheerful whistling did not seem to thrill her companion, the other an aggravated pirate whose charcoal-colored boots became more and more coated with the sludge below after each step. He grabbed at a belt around his waist, one of many on his person, and removed a small brown canteen of water. As he took a drink, he realized that the bothersome whistling had come to a stop. He closed his eyes, imagining the look of awe on his bard friend's face as she too realized the irony in him finding solace in a long drink of water after what they had just been through. I'm doing good, Monster. How you doing tonight, man? We're just reading some side stories that I wrote that take place in between my third book and my fourth book, but it shouldn't be that hard to follow because I I was saying earlier I don't think I actually even knew where the books were going at this point, so they're stories I just started writing for fun because I had an idea more or less. When was the last time we were on Giare? I think it's supposed to be pronounced. She asked. He opened one eye to look at her while he continued to drink. Some of the refreshment trickled down his grizzly beard. Hey, don't drink at all. Her high pitched voice, known for its angelic sound, only raised his level of irritation. He removed the opening of the canteen from his no longer parched lips and slammed it into her chest. The mud from his hands had found its way onto the flask, which now transferred itself to her bright yellow dress upon impact. It was a miracle in itself that the dress had not been ruined until this point, which only upset her further as she looked down at the damage that had been done. She adjusted the tiny gray cap on the top of her head that also miraculously survived the winds of the storm and regretfully took a swig. Things don't get better over here, only worse by the day. I'm sorry to hear that, Monster Word. It's still more of what you've been dealing with that you were talking about last week. You didn't answer my question, she said after she caught back up with him. Her tone was much less cheerful than before. An answer would not come. The truth was, he didn't know. Time had eluded him for quite a while now, and he wasn't sure if it had been months or years since their last visit. He lifted his right hand up to his neck and began to rub out some of the kinks from the boat ride. His jet black hair was much longer than their last visit, and that was all he knew. They traveled in silence down the dark road. Whenever it rained on Giare, it was as if the island had wronged the heavens, and it sent the rain down as vengeance. It was unjust, brutal in every way imaginable, and only got worse the further out you went from the island. The aftermath of the storms always brought about a mist that covered the entire island, a problem for the residents with demons and wild animals lurking around. Though those same residents were grateful for the rain as it was necessary to help their harvests. We should rest here, Trey, said the bard. The outpost isn't much further, Trey said. Though this time he paused to face her. You're gonna make it, right? Was that concerned? Because that almost sounded like concern. Trey immediately went back to walking. Liv, he said. Yeah, just go back to singing. It's funny that her name is Liv because that's my niece's name, and this was written way before she was born. When they had reached the outpost, the mist had subsided. The sky had brightened, but only slightly. The sun had not fully shone in what seemed like forever. The rays would not be brighter than Liv's dress, mud and all. I once ate a... This is the song she's singing, by the way. I once ate a beetle on the way to Balwal's foot. It was ugly, gross, and crunchy, and completely covered in soot, she sang. I have no idea how I pictured this to actually be sung. Not that I would probably sing it anyway. Germany wants to openly attack Russia. Talk is even about stationing nukes here? Oh my god. That escalated even more than what you told me last week. That's crazy. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. That's insane. I haven't heard any. I remember you saying last week that like news about this stuff doesn't seem to be traveling. But that's crazy. Like that's the first I'm hearing about it from you in my chat. That seems like something I should have heard about. They reached the outpost. The walls were made of long bamboo-like wood that was cut and roped together. Not the most fortified of places on Giare, period. Dre walked up cautiously, his left hand extended behind him to quiet Liv. Excuse me. Something's not right, he said. His hand pushed open the doors. Is it supposed to be unlocked? Liv asked. Stay close. Dre walked into the circular outpost. Vacant wooden chairs were lined up with wooden tables. Not a plate or piece of food was found on any of the tables. Everything was empty. Nothing but ghosts here, Dre said. His voice broke the silence, but did nothing to quell the uneasy feeling Liv had from the stillness of the air inside the outpost. Let's take a look from the watchtower and see if we can find out why this place is abandoned. Dre began to walk towards a tall wooden tower that was placed in the corner of the outpost. Each log had been placed awkwardly in the frame of the tower, and Dre began to question if it would collapse once they reached the top. At the base of the tower, Dre examined the sturdiness of a lofty ladder placed against the tower. Dre turned back to Liv to find her eyes still fixated on one of the empty tables. Are you coming? He asked. This time it was Liv that did not give a response. He let go of the ladder and rejoined her. He stepped between her and the table. Are you alright, Livy? Yeah, like that's crazy. That is literally the first time I'm hearing about him on Sword. That's crazy. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, because that would be horrible and just an absolute mess for both countries, I feel. I'm afraid, she answered as she brought her arms up together, clenching her elbows as if a sudden chill had come over her. I know. You're not used to this. Luckily for you, I am. He forced a smile. Dre's teeth were surprisingly well kept, though hard to notice with the distraction of his beard. Let me be your strength, Liv. Let me be your courage. Something happened to the people here. She began to slowly walk towards the watchtower. Dre followed. Something that left no trace of them. What if that something happens to us? It won't. Let me go up first, just in case. They climbed... I'm gonna fix this. Actually, I like to leave it where I know the date when I last worked on it, so sorry to anybody that bothers, but I'm not gonna I'm not gonna fix typos at the moment. As much as I also want to, it bothers me too. They climbed in silence for what seemed like forever. Once they reached the top, Dre and Livy stood side by side as they looked out into the distance. Dre wondered if the storm returned. Dre wondered if the storm returned, if the tower would survive the winds. When they looked out beyond the outpost, a grayness had enveloped the ground and sky before and around them. In the distance, there were tiny specks of orange and yellow light that danced to and fro. Fire, Liv whispered as if the ghosts below them could hear her. They're marching. The demons? Liv turned her head to look up at Dre's face. He continued to stare out at the tiny fires in the distance. Yeah, or the barbarians of Gladomine. It's hard to tell. I want to come back here one day when this is all over. She turned her focus back to the fields beneath them. These fields between Gladomine and Ithin are beautiful when the sunlight touches them. Have you ever seen it? The first time I set foot on the soils here was long after this land had already been ruined. Unfortunate. Livy felt bad for Dre. Everyone seemed to feel bad for him. I was here once as a child, before all of this. The image is permanently etched in my mind. I close my eyes and try to travel back to that moment as often as possible. It helps me write songs. She looked at Dre again. This time he returned the stare. The smile on her face so soon after she admitted she was afraid worried him. Not just for us in Russia, NATO and EU want to join into the fun, and that would make a World War III. Yeah, it's scary, man. It's really scary. I would not be surprised if we see a World War III in the rest of our lifetime here. It's pretty scary to think about. Yeah, hopefully it just doesn't come to that. Alright. She's too innocent for all of this. I can't let this destroy her, he thought. That's that, she yelled. Her excitement made Dre believe she was going to jump up in the air. He immediately grabbed parts of the tower, afraid it would fall apart if she did. I've decided we're going to come back here when all of this is over, when the sun is back to full strength. I would like that. Dre let go of the tower. We'll come back, with our admiral, her navigator, Ortiv and Mael. The rest of the fleet, too. Ortiv. The very thought of the man made Dre tense up. Livy noticed immediately. Things can go back the way they were in time. You two didn't always have such a complicated friendship. No, we didn't. Okay, chapter 1. I guess I had a lot of comments to be made about this. Alright. Chapter 1. It's the perfect plan. Dre Beauclair was sitting on a wooden bench in his cabin as he recalled the conversation he had with fellow pirate Ortiv Daruga. The Admiral leads the fleet to Jari. Once we secure their safety, we both break off and go our separate ways and flank the demons. This plan, conceived by Ortiv, had been expanded upon and given approval from their Admiral. This same plan saw Dre's ship, known as the Nave della Morte, at the rear of the fleet as their last resort had something gone awry. Yet the day they set sail to carry out this plot presented trials and tribulations that they could have never expected or planned for, had they millions of years to do so. The first time he blinked revealed the movement of every item in the cabin. The second brought the entire room into focus. Captain Dre Buclair rolled off. I like to say people's full names. I need to get out of that habit. I've done better recently, and I fixed some of it in like book 2 and stuff like that. But I say like full names way too much. Anyway, Captain Dre Buclair rolled off of the wooden shelf that was his bed the night before. Bottles of rum and boxes of cargo decorated the room. The ship shook side to side, which made it difficult for him to stand. "We're under attack, damn it," he yelled, as if there was someone to warn. He brought one hand up and pushed back the shaggy black hair blocking his view. He reached with his free hand as if searching for something particular and found one of the bottles of rum. He shrugged and took a swig before he threw the bottle against the wall and sprinted out of the room. He raced up wooden stairs that creaked with each step. As he emerged to the deck, he was taken aback by what he saw. The sun had risen, yet there was a darkness in the sky that blocked its rays. The dark yellow sky seemed unimportant while there was fire crackling off in the distance. One of the ships that were part of the fleet Dre belonged to was set ablaze. The assailants were all riding ships with black wood. Similar to Dre's ship, the Nave de la Muerte, the only difference was that the ships of their enemies were much larger than his. He stood by the doors he had just emerged from and surveyed the carnage. "Captain," a loud voice broke his concentration. "I gathered your axes for you." Dre turned to face the burly, dark-skinned man who handed him two small hand axes. Though Dre's clothes were very plain, especially compared to the other members of the fleet, he wore multiple belts all over his body. Each belt had a different design, yet all of them were brown or black in color, except the one around his waist. That particular belt was crimson in color, and he hung the first axe on that belt on the right side. He placed the second axe on a belt that ran diagonally across his chest. "Are ye all right, Captain? Ye look confused." The burly man put his hand... That's my pirate. That's all you're getting, I think. Unless I go full, like, Barbossa from Pirates of the Caribbean. The burly man put his hand on Dre's shoulder and bent down to look him in the face. Dre had dark black eyes that matched his black hair. The shaggy hair that blocked his vision earlier came down just below his chin. He kept the beard on his face trimmed and close to his skin. Okay. Rough night? "I'm fine, Wyatt. How long has this been going on for?" "The portal opened about an hour ago." Wyatt turned to face the chaos. Dre had not noticed the portal until Wyatt mentioned it. A large black abyss hung in the middle of the sky. It radiated a dark, mistful aura that appeared to be the cause for the darker sky he acknowledged earlier. Gargoyle-like creatures hovered and danced around it. Those creatures flew out and began attacking us. Then the boats came. The ones with the black wood. The similarities between his ship and the enemy's ships gave him an uneasy feeling. Aye, same as the Nave. Wyatt grabbed a silver pistol off the belt on his waist and handed it to Dre. "Oi, I almost forgot your pistol, Captain." Dre looked down at the weapon. The thought of finally using it in combat lingered in his head for a moment. Guns were a rarity and bullets were even rarer. The idea of getting to use the resources he's gathered for years made him anxious. He checked the gun to make sure it was loaded, then placed it on the belt around his waist on the opposite side of the axe. "Any word from the Admiral?" Dre walked past Wyatt once again. He examined the battle in front of him. Despite all of the fighting, the ships around him were untouched. If the portal opened an hour ago and there were flying monsters to deal with, it struck him odd that none of them had reached the ships assigned to him yet. It meant the Admiral was putting up a good fight. "None yet. Crimson Lion leads the fleet, as you know, so they were in direct contact as soon as the portal opened. I wouldn't worry too much, Captain. The Admiral's hard to kill." "Aye," Dre said with a nod. His eyes were fixated on the portal. "Wyatt, watch the ship. I'm gonna have words with Ortiz. No matter what happens, defend the Nave with all you have." He put out his hand, a gesture that Wyatt accepted. "I shall, Captain, with my last breath if I must." "Let's hope it does not come to that, my friend." He let go of Wyatt's hand and grabbed a hold of a rope near the prow of the ship. The front of the Nave had a figurehead of a large demon. Its arms were stretched out as if the creature was going to bear hug you. On pieces of the figurehead, the demon had bones instead of skin. Dre swung from ship to ship across the massive fleet. In the center of the fleet was a large ship. Its sails were green with a black picture of the earth on it. The Chroma's Fall was the name of the ship crafted for the pirate Ortiv Daruga. After a war that led to an apocalyptic event known as the Stratus, Chroma was the last continent remaining. It was found in the center of the world. From this continent emerged ninjas, pirates, warriors with special gifts known as arts, and wizards. Some people even fell under multiple categories, such as Ortiv himself. Ortiv was first mate to the legendary pirate king Rapez. He saw that Rapez would lose the battle with their current admiral, therefore he decided to join the winning side. His ship was to pay homage to the Stratus and the destruction it brought Chroma. It was also given to him to help the influence of a prophet on Chroma known as the Earth Mother. Yeah, I don't even remember like straight up mentioning this. So that kind of spoils what I was talking. Ortiv is meant to be like the new Rapez. Ortiv himself was not interested in the prophet's preaching, nor would he go on to spread the word of her divinity. But there wasn't a pirate on Earth that would refuse a free ship. Dre landed on the Chroma's Fall and immediately took notice of a battle raging at the center. I don't know. He might end up disappointing you too, Mistral. I honestly don't fully remember how I wrote his character, but I don't think he's that bad. Dre landed on the Chroma's Fall and immediately took notice of a battle raging at its center. Ortiv, much taller and muscular than Dre, was caught in a battle with the gargoyle demons. Ortiv was surrounded and being cut and slashed by the demon's claws. His dirty blonde hair and beard had streaks of red from his cuts. He fought, he doesn't have red hair, he just has like blood streaks in his hair, okay? I just want to clarify. I do have a lot of red-haired characters, though. He fought the demons off with a cutlass that was much larger than the average cutlass. The blade itself was gold, as was the handle, though the green and purple mixed blood of the demons had added to its unique design. Dre immediately drew his axes and joined the fray. He leapt in the air and caught one of the demons in the neck, which forced it to plummet to the ground. This caused the demons to become distracted and provided Ortiv with a much-needed opening. The two pirates fought back-to-back and slaughtered all of the demons around them. When the deed was done, both pirates laughed between each heavy breath. It's been a while since we fought back-to-back, Ortiv exclaimed loudly. He turned and greeted his comrade. Aye, had I been a minute later, I would be discovering your body right now, Dre said with a smile. Despite being pirates, Dre and Ortiv were far from unkempt. I'm assuming that I wrote the prologue after everything else, or separate from everything else, because I am repeating some stuff about Dre and now Ortiv. You know, like I mentioned, Dre was like, he took care of his teeth, and like he wasn't like a normal pirate, I guess. The Admiral made sure that her captains took care of themselves and gave their fleet a good image. No one was sure if that was a personal preference or if it was a means of swindling those who deemed them unsoiled. Ha! The day is new, my friend. Before this day is over, you may make that discovery. This fight does not go in our favor. Ortiv put his cutlass away and checked his ship for any damage. The portal grows with each passing minute. Before long, it'll be spewing much larger demons than these. And the Admiral? Dre poked one of the dead demons with the top of his axe. It rolled over and made a squishy sound. Very important details. Hell if I know. She put herself at the front and made it impossible for us to keep tabs on her. She's taking the brunt of the assault right now. That sure ain't stopping the demons from making their way down here. We should go check on her, Dre said as he walked past Ortiv. He was once again fixated on the portal. He tried to see if the Admiral's ship was visible from where they were. Be my guest. I'm staying here. There will be more demons on the way, and I'm not leaving my ship until it's no longer under attack. Fair enough. Dre jumped up near the prow. Prow? I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce that. I remember looking up parts of ships for these, but I don't know if that's how it's pronounced. And grabbed a rope similar to how he did on the Nave. I will go check on the Admiral and make sure she's still alive. That actually was a good one because it uses the senses. Oh, the squishy sound one? I will go check on the Admiral and make sure she's still alive. Alive? That cat has more than 9 lives. I don't think you need to worry about the Admiral. It's the rest of the ships and their crews I'm worried about. There's way too many incapable hands in this fleet. I'll check on them. Dre was about to swing across to the next ship when another group of demons flew up from beneath him. They shot out of the water with such force that the wind from their flight nearly knocked Dre off balance. They floated down in front of Ortiv, and Dre reached for his axes. Keep those axes on your belts. I'll take care of this. Get going. As you command, Captain, Dre yelled with a laugh. A loud yar was heard behind Dre as he pushed off the Chroma's fall. He continued to navigate through the ships of the fleet as he swung to his next destination. One of the demons flew by and cut the rope he was on. He fell onto the next ship. He slid across planks of wood that had been damaged in the fighting. Each inch he slid caused pain to shoot through his back. When he finally came to a halt, he shook his head to regain focus, and his eyes locked on a woman who stood in front of him. She leaned to the side, favoring her left arm, which had blood that flowed down to her fingertips. The blood dripped off her fingers to the deck as she slowly walked towards him. She had only a loose white shirt and long black pants on. Her boots were missing, there was no hat or gloves to be found, and Dre did not see a weapon on her body anywhere. Her long black hair was slicked back and only covered the middle of her head. The sides were short with a single shaved line through each. Had better days, Captain Beauclair? She offered her only good hand to him. I don't have many good days, Mael, but this one has been exceptionally bad. He stood up on his own. He feared that taking her hand would only cause her to fall over in her current state. For you and me both, it would seem. What troubles have befell ye on this black and misty morning? She grinned for a moment, but immediately grimaced after. None that would leave me naked and defenseless. Dre began to examine Mael's ship. Mael Trilut had quickly shot up the ranks of the Admiral's fleet, though none were ranked as high as Dre and Ortiv, as they were the Admiral's first mates. Mael was close behind. Her ship was named the Cat's Rose, in tribute to one of the Admiral's daughters, who had died in battle. Anyway, moving on. Her ship was in worse shape than any of the others he had been on, but as it was one of the sturdiest ships in the fleet, it did not show signs that it would be going down anytime soon. I do seem a bit underdressed, huh? Mael looked down and covered herself up with her hands as if she just noticed. Are you going to the Crimson Lion? Aye, going to check on the Admiral. Ortiv is busy defending his ship. No demons even looked at the Nave. Ah yes, your trusty ship takes up the rear. That must eat you up inside. Ever lose sleep over it? No. Dre began making his way towards the prow of the ship. I was using the prow of the ship a lot, but couldn't find a means to cross to the next one. The ship from hell is our last resort if things go sour, which they already seem to be heading in that direction. Definitely an exceptionally bad day for both of us, she laughed. If you're trying to get off the ship, I'm afraid you'll have to swim. I'll have to go back the way I came and see if I can go around. He walked past her, but she grabbed his arm. Are you going to be all right? Just get me to my weapons and I could defend the ship. What happened to your ship, Mael? Did you fight them off with no armor or weapons? There's another way to make it to the next ship, but we need to get to the hold. She let go of his arm and began to walk toward stairs in the middle of the deck. Dre grabbed her good arm and turned her back around. Where's your crew, Mael? She refused to look him in the eyes. She pulled her arm away again. Get me to my weapons. This time Dre did not respond. They traveled down into the inside of the ship in silence. They made their way towards the hold of the Cat's Rose, which was placed all the way at the front of the ship. Excuse me. Just as they were about to enter, a demon emerged from the doors. This demon was much larger than the others and human in shape. It had blades attached to its forearms that covered the distance between Dre and the demon and allowed the creature to skim Dre's chest. The cut was not deep, though it did begin to bleed lightly through his shirt. Dre backed away and reached for his axes, but Mael put her good arm around his body and grabbed his pistol. Hey now. The pop of the shot caused both of them to cringe, but as they turned their attention back to the demon, it collapsed to the floor. Smoke rose from the wound made on the creature's chest. Dre turned and grabbed the pistol from Mael. I'm sorry, she said as she looked up at him. Dre thought she would lose consciousness at any moment. I know you've been waiting to use that for a long time. Hey, Mael, stay with me. He grabbed both of her arms to hold her up. Are you gonna make it? The path that demon came from was a bridge from the hold of the Cat's Rose to the aft of the Gold Promise. You could use that to go across. To get across. I'm not gonna leave you in this condition with no crew to support you. He let go of her as she now stood on her own. My swords are in my quarters, right over there. She pointed to a room down the hall. Dre stared at her for a moment before he fetched them. Go help the Admiral. Excuse me. Sorry. I'm already losing my voice. I haven't even been reading for that long. Alright. Go help the Admiral. Not until you tell me what happened on this ship and how I could help you live long enough to see me again. He reloaded the pistol. I'll tell you. She walked past Dre and leaned against the wall next to the hold. The bridge he needed to cross was right behind her. In a tavern, while we enjoy a nice cold ale when this nightmare is over. Promise me. They both looked up as they heard footsteps on the deck. Dre handed her his pistol. You're a better shot than I'll ever be. The distance will buy you time. Now promise me we'll get to have that drink. Promise, she said with a smile. She closed her eyes and leaned her head against the wall. She waved the pistol in the air. Now get going or I'll shoot you. Dre listened to what she had to say, then left across the bridge. The bridge wasn't very sturdy and was just above the water below them. The bridge connected both ships through an underwater tunnel. It was created solely out of wood and needed to be set up beforehand. The fleet always traveled with some of these tunnels set up on the ships. Dre got lucky that the Cat's Rose was chosen as one of the ships with the tunnel this time. Once he emerged on the next ship, he could not figure out which ship it was. The entire ship was engulfed in flames. The fire was spreading quickly, and some of the gargoyle demons were throwing more fire onto the ship. Dre looked around quickly for a way out, but the smoke was building up and gathering quickly, and made it difficult for him to see. 5 shadowy figures appeared within the smoke and stepped out to reveal themselves. It was 5 more demons, but these demons were like the human-shaped demon that attacked him in Mayel, only much larger. Dre readied his weapons. Don't you demons ever take a break? Before Dre or the demons could act, one of the stomachs of the demon split wide open. The green and purple blood gushed out. Behind the now fallen demon stood a woman with tan skin. She had a dark gray bandana covering her head, and on the left side of her face she had numerous piercings, including 6 hooped earrings in her left ear. 1 spike above her eyebrow, 2 small hoops in her nose, and another hoop in her lower lip. She had long black hair that was surprisingly well kept, with dark black eyes and a second bandana, though this one was red, tied around her neck. She was wearing tight red leather armor. I like that all of them wear red in some capacity, because of the Admiral. She was wearing tight red leather armor all over the rest of her body, and the tool she used to open the demon was a long hooked sword. You just can't seem to stay out of trouble, can you, Dre? The woman looked at the 2 demons beside her as if they would answer her. It's hard to stay out of trouble when you and the Admiral are always seem to show up at the right time to save the day. Dre turned and slit the throat of the demon to his right with one of his axes. He turned to the left demon and slashed it open with his other axe. The woman wasted the rest with her sword. We need to get off this ship fast, Zerkia. Zerkia Ra was an infamous pirate who sailed the seas with the Admiral of the fleet many years ago. Since then, she had many disagreements with the Admiral, but eventually they reunited and put the past behind them. That's actually Book 2 spoilers, too, Pistol, sorry. Now back to working together, they focused on taking over the seas that surrounded Chroma. The 2 spent majority of their time on the Crimson Lion, where Zerkia was the navigator. The other crew members believed that the 2 were hiding their plans from them, but followed them nonetheless. As long as they were getting treasure along the way, they followed them wherever they went. Like a piece of hair itching my eye. The ship behind you is in bad shape, Zerkia explained. The Bard is on that one, along with a few others who don't be as skilled as we are in the art of war, if you catch my drift. And the one on your side? The fire began to spread. It created a line of flames between them. Bad as well, she shouted over the crackling of the flames. Get the ship behind you, I'll get this one. She went to turn towards the ship on her side, but Dre interrupted her steps. Zerkia, wait! If you're here, then who is behind the wheel of the Lion? Zerkia always sailed the Lion. The Admiral would not let anyone else on the wheel except herself. The Admiral be needing more than a navigator right now. She hopped up onto the side of the ship and grabbed one of the ropes. Now go. After those words, she swung across. Dre turned around and did the same. The next ship he landed on was all but sunk. The wood on the mast was obliterated, and the sails were already in the water. Blood and body parts that belonged to both humans and demons were scattered all over the deck. He lifted his arm to shield what he smelled and what he saw. With the sails down, he couldn't make out whose ship it was. The doors that led to the inside of the ship were covered in the debris. Dre moved all of the wood out of the way except the last plank. The last piece of wood he used to remove a demon arm that was on the deck in front of the doors. After he discarded the arm and the aforementioned plank, he made his way inside. He made sure to take each step carefully as he made his way down the stairs. If anything had gotten inside the ship, the last thing he wanted was it knowing that he was there. Inside was dark, and any water that had gotten into the ship had begun to evaporate and cause a mist that made it even more difficult to see. Far in the aft of the ship, he saw a single lantern on a desk. It flickered from time to time, but was his only guide. As he made his way towards the lantern, he faintly heard the angelic voice of Livy Pilewind. She's singing again. Here we are on the open sea, her song began. Each word she sang helped guide Dre to her. The wind and the water are now part of me, she continued. Keep singing, Livy. Dre made his way closer and closer to her, but he saw something else in the mist. It had its back to Dre and was watching Livy. The ears, eyes, and body made it no mistake for Dre to tell it was a demon, and he wondered if the monster was also fascinated by his musically gifted friend. Right as he was about to strike the demon, it spun around and caught his wrist. Damn! Dre tried to pull away, but he couldn't. The demon clawed at his chest and scratched him from the bottom of his neck down to the top of his stomach. He pulled back, and the demon still wouldn't budge. Finally, he reached down and grabbed his other axe and stuck it in the demon's head. The demon roared and tried to pull away from Dre, but now Dre flipped the grip and grabbed the demon by the wrist before pulling it in and finishing it off. While he fought to catch his breath and let the sting of his wound pass, he realized the music had stopped. Dre rushed in and saw Livy sitting there staring at him. In her hand was a small instrument that resembled a violin. Yeah, he just gets like slashed down his chest. You came for me, Livy said. Her expression was rather blank. Yeah, Dre was using the doorway of the cabin to hold himself up. Of course I did. I thought I was gonna die. Livy stood up from the crate she was sitting on. The table with the lantern Dre was using to guide him was next to her. You still might, Dre warned. You should have tried to get off the ship, Liv. I don't know how to get from one ship to another, and I'm not sure I could do it myself, Livy said. If it was a matter of life and death, which it was, I'm sure you would find a way. Dre turned to walk back up, and Livy followed close behind. If I was going to die anyway, I want to die singing. Livy made sure not to walk ahead of Dre, even though he was walking slow due to the demon encounter. That's nice. Dre utilized the wall of the stairs leading up to the top of the ship to help him get there. I need to find the Admiral. Still on the Lion, no doubt, Livy said. I think I'll just slow you down if I go with you. You need to get back to the Nave. That will be where we escape, said Dre. Since you don't think you can make it on your own, I'll get you to Zerkia. When Dre and Livy reached the top of the ship they were on, Dre noticed the boat that he met Zerkia on, the Gold Promise, was now in the ocean. Not good. Dre looked around to see no other boats connected to the one they were on. Whose ship is this? Dardennes, said Livy. Dardenne? We have a Dardenne in the fleet? I can't say I remember that name. Dre looked over the side of the ship to see if there was anything they could use. Luckily for them, there were no demons left on board. Pieces of the Golden Promise. Is it Golden Promise or Gold? Oh, Gold Promise. Pieces of the Gold Promise are floating beneath us. This ship isn't going to last much longer. Do you think Dardenne is still alive? Livy looked toward the front of the ship. Judging by the shape of this ship, it's a miracle that you're alive. I doubt many others survived. Dre made his way to the front and Livy followed. The moment they reached the tip, they heard a loud crash beneath them. The ship swayed to the screeching sounds that followed, and the ship began to sink. You could swim, right? I think so, Livy replied. I need a more confident answer than that right now. Dre looked Livy right in the eyes. Yes, she assured him as confidently as she could. Good. Dre grabbed Livy's hand. On my count, we're jumping. We're gonna jump? Livy went to pull her hand away, but Dre grabbed it tight. 1, 2, jump! Dre led and Livy was forced to follow. The two fell fast and just barely missed parts of the ship they were on, and parts of the Gold Promise. The impact with the water sent them low, far lower than Livy had ever been in water. This day marked one of the few days that anyone had ever been in the normally vicious waters surrounding Chroma. Unfortunately, most of the people in the water with Dre and Livy were dead. Livy opened her eyes underwater, which was another first for her. She could see the legs of a large turtle near the front of the fleet and a few demons that were swimming in the water up ahead as well. Dre never let go of her hand the whole time as they swam to the next ship. Once at the base of the ship, Dre helped Livy up to some ropes hanging from it. Once they emerged, Livy did everything in her power to regain her breath. My Trellin, she said as she gasped. We'll get you a new one. That's her instrument, I think. Thank you. Yeah, I definitely need the hydrate. Thank you. Struggle. I should probably shut the heat. I feel like sometimes when I have the heat running down here, it dries my throat a little bit. After this, I'll do it. We don't have much more. 7 more pages. Yeah, the trellin I think is what I was calling her instrument, so that's why she's like my trellin. She like lost her violin thing. We'll get you a new one made when we're back on land. Dre said of her instrument. Yeah, there you go. Dre said of her instrument. That would have been helpful to read first. Better you than it, right? Right. Livy said the words, but she wasn't sure if she meant them. Can you climb? Dre started up the side of the ship on the ropes attached to it. Not much of a choice. Livy followed him up. When Dre reached the top, he boarded the ship and did a quick scan to see if there were any demons. To his surprise, the ship didn't have a lot of action compared to the others, even though it was near the front of the fleet. Excuse me. He turned back and helped Livy over the side of the boat. Near impossible to get you back to the Nave now, Dre said. You're gonna have to accompany me to the Crimson Lion. Stay close. Okay. Livy surveyed the ship herself and also found it weird that nothing was happening. Take this. Dre handed her a small dagger. Only use it if you absolutely have to. Let me take most of the burden. These are monsters, Livy said out loud. Dre wasn't sure if she was reminding herself or letting him know that she was willing to kill these things if she had to. This is the frozen dart, Dre pointed out. It acts as the anchor to the Crimson Lion. Makes it even more weird that there aren't any demons here. As they made their way past the sail of the ship, the rest of the sky once again became visible. Look! In front of them were a lot of the flying demons. They had the Crimson Lion surrounded. In front of the Crimson Lion was the large turtle demon that Livy saw the feet of when they were underwater. On the back of the turtle, right in the center of its gigantic shell, was a very large castle. Demons and bats fluttered around it. Yo, what's up, Kai? How you doing, man? Who's this? I was talking about you the other day. I was like, I haven't seen Kai in a while. I hope he's doing good. How's life? How's everything? Demons and bats fluttered around it. Tethers of dark energy connected the castle to the portals that were floating in the sky as well. Maybe if we can get onto that castle, we could shut the demons down. Dre started to move towards the Crimson Lion, but a person came swinging on a rope from the Crimson Lion and landed on top of Dre. Fancy meeting you here, said Mira Stormwillow. The admiral of their fleet was the infamous Catgirl pirate, but she was in bad shape from defending the Crimson Lion for so long. Happy you're alive, Admiral, Livy said with a smile. Get your knee off my groin, boss, Dre said with a higher voice than normal. I was more like, get your knee off my groin, boss. Oops, Mira laughed. Sorry about that. As Mira stood up, Dre noticed rips and tears all over her shirt and pants. Her pirate hat was gone, and her long red hair was even longing? It's supposed to be longer. Even longer than when she was on Chroma. Her cutlass was also missing. Been busy. Super Bowl weekend was. Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. But I may have finally recovered from it. Oh yeah, you must have got hammered in more ways than one, probably. I didn't even think of that, man. Yikes. Well, at least you survived. What's the status of the lion? Asked Dre as he also got back to his feet, now standing. He also noticed that Mira was barefoot, having lost her boots in the scuffle as well. It's not ours anymore, let's just say that. Mira walked past Livy and looked off the back of the boat at the carnage behind them. We're basically one ship behind. Probably not safe to stay here, Dre reminded her. You were always the smart one. Mira turned back and smiled. We need ships if we're going to survive today. How's the Nave? The Nave. Untouched last I knew, said Dre. Probably our best chance of getting out of here. Aye. Mira looked out behind the ship again and saw Zerkia fighting on the next ship over. We need Zerkia on this ship. I'm not sure why the demon skipped over the frozen dart, but we're going to take this ship, gather up the others, and make for the Nave. As if she heard the Admiral, Zerkia came swinging over on a rope. That was Seaside Justice I just came... Seaside Justice? That was Seaside Justice I just came from, Zerkia said the moment she landed. It's going to sink at any moment. I'd be needing you to steer the frozen dart out of here and get us as close to the Nave as possible, Mira said. Leave it to me. Zerkia took the helm and began turning them around. Once the demons realize we're escaping, they're going to get involved, said Dre. Guess we need to defend the ship while Zerkia gets us out of here. Mira reached for her guns. Livy, this should have a quote. Livy, how's your eyesight? Pretty good, I think, Livy replied. Good. Go join Zerkia and help her spot who's left from our crew, Mira commanded, and Livy ran over to Zerkia. How are you feeling? If you're wondering if I could still fight, you could stop worrying, I'm fine. How about Ortiv? Mira stood close to Dre as the ship turned around. He was taking on a lot of demons last time I saw him, but he'll be fine. Dre removed his axes from the belts on his body. If he did a good job defending it, we might be able to take the Chroma's Fall with us as well. That would give us 3 ships. 3 ships would help for whatever comes next, Mira sighed. Can't say we need 3 ships to hold everyone in the fleet anymore. Our numbers are going to be bad after this. We'll build it back up, Dre answered. For now, let's deal with this. Mira looked at what Dre was referring to, and 4 demons had climbed up the side of the ship. They were looking side to side, but not attacking. I wonder what they're searching for, Dre said. Let's not give them time to find it, Mira said with a smile. A blast of energy whizzed past Dre's head as he rushed in. The shot from Mira's gun caught the first demon in the middle of the eyes, and the demon immediately turned to dust. Dre planted his axe in the head of the demon next to the one Mira just killed, then put his other axe in its chest. As he finished off that demon, the other 2 dropped in similar fashion to the first one Mira shot. It's not fair when you have those guns and that art put together, Dre laughed as he walked back over to Mira. How do you think I was able to defend the lion for so long? She smiled back. I got lucky with my gifts. Like street justice? Yeah, I don't know why it's seaside justice. It was just meant to be like a ship that gets destroyed anyway, so I probably didn't think too hard on the name, but seaside justice. Dre and Mira defended the ship from 2 more waves of demons before they gave up. As Zerkia led the frozen dart through what was left of their fleet, they picked up a few of the other pirates along the way, including Ortiv and Mael. Mael was still hurt, so Dre carried her to one of the cabins down below. From Ortiv's ship also came Agnes, the former healer of Repez. She was still a friend of Mira's and continued her role as healer under Mira's leadership. She attended to Mael's injuries as the group returned to the Nave. Chroma's Fall was still intact enough to retreat with them, leaving only the Nave, the Frozen Dart, and Chroma's Fall remaining from the ships in the fleet. As they pushed further and further away from the demon attack, it was possible to still see ships falling in the distance. It feels like they let us get away, Dre said, now back on the Nave with Mira. If they continued to pursue us, I don't think we would have made it. Those demons on the Dart were looking for something, Mira reminded him. Maybe they found it. It's scary to think what those demons are planning, said Dre. I thought we were safe on the sea and the outer islands. If those demons choose not to also go to Chroma, we may be seeing them again really soon. What do you think we should do? Mira leaned her arms on the ship. I was going to ask you that, Admiral. Dre crossed his arms. You usually have a plan. I do, but you're not going to like it, Mira sighed again. What are you thinking? We need to divide our forces. Mira stopped leaning on the ship and walked past Dre. That's crazy. Dre walked over to her as she walked to the other side of the ship. She was looking out into the ocean. We're going to have way fewer members now. You said it yourself. Why would we divide our forces now? We have to, Mira said. We have too many tasks that we need to complete, and it's going to take too long to complete them if we continue to move together. This separation, despite the lives lost, is actually a good opening for us to do that. We're going to have this conversation again, aren't we? Dre shook his head. I know you want to find Marcus. I know you only put together this fleet to help you cover more ground to find him. But things have escalated and changed drastically. This isn't just about you and your lover anymore. Oh, spoilers, by the way. This has always been about finding Marcus. You know that, Mira reminded him. We wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't for me wanting to find Marcus. And the rest of us? Are we all just demon fodder to you? You know that isn't the case. But I've strayed too far from my plans to continue to run in the wrong direction. Mira walked over to the stairs leading to the cabins below. When we return to the hideout, I'm going to step down as Admiral. Zerkia and I will find Marcus. With demons running around, it's not safe for the 2 of you to go alone. I'm going to bring one other person. Mira smiled, then vanished down in the cabins below. As she walked through, she heard Dre follow her down. We need the firepower you bring if we're going to stand a chance against the demons. You're our strongest weapon, Dre reminded her. You can't rely on me forever. Mira went down to the next area below and Dre followed. We're stronger with you in the ranks is all I'm saying. Dre stopped and Mira did the same. Who will even lead in your place? I've already decided how to handle it. I'll say more when we're back at the hideout. I'll meet you upstairs. Why are we down in the dungeons? Dre looked around for answers, but only saw empty cells. If I was on this ship and woke up to what you woke up to, this would have been my first stop. Mira began walking further past the cells. Just wait for me upstairs. Dre shook his head once more before returning to the deck of the ship. Mira made her way to the very end of the cells on the Nave. A man with wide shoulders stood in complete darkness, staring at the wall. He had black armor on and gray hair that wasn't styled like it used to be. Is it over? Asked Wyglaff. The demon attack? You could tell? Asked Mira. I could hear the screams. I've fought plenty of demons in my day to know those screams. We managed to escape, but not without suffering a lot of losses, both ships and people. Mira looked inside the cell, but Wyglaff turned around and stepped more into the light. Not used to being on this side of the cell. I'm still not used to being in one myself. Wyglaff laughed. I understand why you put me in here, but there's no need. I have nowhere else to go. That was all I wrote so far. There's a lot going on, but you could see how it ties into stuff from the books, though. I read this part wrong. That was Mira. Like, I'm not used to being on the, like, outside of the cell. So if I remember correctly, I think the plan was Mira, and the reason why she's like, you're not gonna like my plan, is she ends up giving the entire fleet to Dre and Ortiz, and she makes them like co-lead, which they like kind of have a little animosity towards each other. So they end up like co-leading the fleet and trying to figure out like how to work together. Excuse me. And then like Mira is kind of like, she's not even the main character of this. It's really about them like trying to lead the fleet while she goes look for Marcus. That was cool hearing more about the Soldier's Crest characters. Yeah. And then I don't know if you skimmed, I know you said you skimmed the whole book too, but like Wyglaff being on the boat, like he's not on Chroma anymore after book 2, so this is actually like one of the first times we actually see him after what happens to him in book 2. Based on what I've wrote. But yeah. Agnes too. Agnes you don't see after that because he leaves with Rapez, so he's probably a part of Rapez's fleet when they defeat him. Was what I was going for. I mean, I never wrote anything with that. This other story is like adjacent to this one. Yeah, at the end I read that. Yes, I know, I was surprised. Yeah. Yeah, Wyglaff is just kind of like taken out of the picture. Um I was originally planning to kill him in the second book. Uh but there's like some other character deaths in the second book that I felt like if I also killed Wyglaff, it was gonna be like too much. I'm gonna sit down. We're going down. I always knew Rapez wasn't king material, even though, yeah, he just kind of like walks in and takes it. Mira has a really great line in book 2. If you kill Wyglaff, I would be so sad. Yeah, Wyglaff is kind of meant to be like, even though he's like really old, he's meant to be like pretty adorable. Is that the right word? Like he's hard to kill. It's part of his art. His art is basically makes him like invincible. What was the line? Mira has a really great line to Rapez early on when she first sees him. Oh yeah. Well, what I wanted, like, Griffin doesn't really do anything until the end of book one, right? As far as like killing people go, I mean, he kills like some other people like earlier on to like get the throne, but like, um, he doesn't really kill a lot of people. My whole thing with Synthro is like I want people when they're reading a scene with their favorite character and Synthro in it, I wanted it to be like you don't know if he's just gonna kill them. You know? So I needed there to be like a lot of deaths in this book so that you feel some type of like anxiety when Synthro's in a scene with like your favorite character, you know? That was kind of the point. You liked one of the quotes between Grimoire and Rex. That scene is pretty intense. The whole thing with Celis is pretty crazy. I'm pretty proud of that plot point. Um, it's something about him like being like putting the crown on his own head or something like that. It's not like that far down. Mira is mentioned 231 times in this book. Her and Marcus like first meeting each other is pretty great. Marcus has some Marcus has some funny lines in this book. Yeah, it's right here. Synthro is cool. It was better than book one. Yeah, I definitely think book two is better than book one. She calls a lot of people womanizer in this one. This whole scene is good. Marcus and Dessa just like kind of run past her. Mira Stormwillow, the king of Bawal, stood behind her. King of Bawal at this point is Rapez, by the way. How dare you enter my empire and not visit me? Forgive me, your highness. How many people be occupying your kingdom on this day? Weird question. Estimated at around 2,000. There be 2,000 other people I would rather be spending me time with than ye. She smiled and backed away. Now, if you'll excuse me. Is it really you, Mira? The soft voice came from Pip, standing beside Faris, who was having trouble keeping up with the boy. Hi, Pip. How the hell are ye? I'm hungry. I missed you. I just feel like a little kid being like, I'm hungry. I missed you. Damn it, Rapaz. I was going to ask you, does Marcus have amnesia? I think from your FD video of him got me curious. So the way Marcus works is he is like a complicated zombie. Is like the best way I could describe him. So in the first book, there's a scene where he fights this demon general named Crix. And Crix like slices his stomach open and then Lisa heals him. He technically died when Crix slices him open. Lisa kind of like brings him back from the dead. Every time he dies, he loses memories. So that's why, like, in the start of book two, he's like, I'm pretty sure I've been here before. Or like, I'm pretty sure I've been through this forest before, but I don't remember. So, like, because of that death in book one, he's starting to forget things. And, like, that's kind of how it works. So, if you read that scene with Celis, that's like another scene where he, like, dies. And then any scenes with him, like, after that, he's still very, like, forgetful. So the idea is, like, if he continues to die, like, he'll eventually forget everything. Like, how to be a human, how to walk, how to, like, breathe. You know? So, that's why it's, like, it's complicated if he, like, continues to die. But he's a strong fighter, so he doesn't really die that often. But when he does get, like, killed, he forgets things. Like, there's a scene, I don't know if you happened to see it when you were skimming. where Synthro is like looking at Marcus and he's like, you know we've fought before, right? And Marcus like doesn't remember. But actually Marcus is another like immortal character. Um and he's around when Rayo is around. And I was gonna write a scene where Synthro and Rayo fight him because early on Marcus works for this woman and he's like an actual like mercenary, but he's like a bad guy. He's like a villain essentially when Synthro and Rayo are originally around. And he fights them and they like kill him multiple times to the point where he like forgets everything. And that's how he like stops working for that woman because he like doesn't even remember why he was working for her, but then he realizes she's like bad, so he doesn't work for her anymore. So it's like they inadvertently like saved him and put him on like the good guy path by just killing him over and over again. But that also goes to show you like how strong Marcus is because like even though they kill him like multiple times, um he's fighting like the two strongest characters probably in the entire series at the same time. Yeah, he's just like, I'm hungry. I missed you. And she's like, you're hungry? Nicolette didn't feed you yet? You're a cat girl like Leica, Faris said, putting out his hand. I'm Faris Featherwind, one of the Dragon Knights of Balal. And she's like, I, a womanizer ye be, much like your king. Mira ignored his hand and winked at Rapez. That's not true. Who told you that? Faris said, shyly withdrawing his hand. That would be me. Nicolette walked up behind Mira, removing her apron. Food is done, Rapez. Permission to catch up with Mira now that I have finished my duties? Granted only if you bring her to me afterwards, that I may do the same. Rapez smiled at Mira. I really wanted to like Valak, but I don't know. He was better in book 2, but I don't know. Yeah, Valak is still he needs work. I need to rewrite him for sure. If I rewrite book 1, the things that you pointed out to me and gave me feedback on definitely need to be fixed. The stuff that you told me about where like it's almost like he feels a little like inconsiderate to Dawn. I mean, it does feel that way. I've noticed it when he talks to anybody. Like, I know he's got a lot going on, but it's like there's scenes in this book where he's talking to like Quisty and Agnes that are very like they're telling him important stuff and he just kind of like, yeah, whatever. You know? Really thought things were going to be different with Rapez. Yeah. I mean, he's a complicated character. He's just not as enjoyable as I think you wanted him to be. He's not a bad character per se. He's not everything you thought he would be. She goes, now, your highness, you know I be a woman of me own ways. I don't be taking kindly to authority trying to push me around. She loses a lot of the pirate talk as we go on. Not necessarily in this book. More so, like in the 3rd book and beyond. Yo, Spartan, I appreciate the lurk, man. Yeah, he was empathetic towards Iria and Meryl, but even some of their scenes when I was rereading this the other day, I think they could be better. I think we need to improve on that. We'll get there. He goes, I remember, but I'm not only interested in explaining situations from our past. I have a job that might interest you, and it involves a ship strong enough to sail the seas outside of Chroma without a shoreliner. A ship like that exists? Mira's ears perked up and she purred at the thought. Now that I got your attention, I'll be seeing you when you're done with Nicolette. My king, Valak said as he walked up beside them. The situation with the preacher is being handled by the Ragnarok Authority. I see. Find Wyglaff and help them escort the prisoner out of Balal. Try to find out any more details you can on the matter. If Synthro is truly living among us, it would bring Balal much power to have him serve in our ranks. You know what's funny? Like, for a good while in this book, like Rapez does seem like he's being redeemed. Uh, even like when the when demons and Rubrum attack Balal, and even then he's like giving orders and like explaining things, and you're like, yeah, Rapez, let's go. And then he just completely abandons everyone. Synthro versus Valak is fire. Yeah. There's some good Synthro and Valak moments in this book. Um, if Synthro is truly living among us, it would bring Balal much power to have him serve in our ranks. As you wish. Valak walked off in search of Wyglav. Ye boss the mighty hero of Chroma around? He is a knight of Balal, and I am the king. He's just doing his duty. I spend way less time with the man and can tell you he's worth a lot more than you are. Slap a crown on a man's head and let him command legions, no matter his worth. It is a funny world we live in, don't you think? No one slapped a crown on your dumb head. You put it on yourself. She should call him a buffoon, like she does in the prequel. I mean, the side story that I was writing. Mira grabbed Nicolette's hand and began walking off. Pip ran beside them. Now, Nicolette, what have you been up to? I like this part where he's like, I hate that woman. And then Faris is like, she seems like a special one. Yeah, he starts, like, it's funny because I wrote this so long ago. So, like, this character will have that effect on so many people if they read the Mira side story first, like you did. Yeah, knowing what happens, obviously, and I haven't wrote this in so long. When I was reading that scene with Rapez where he's like hyping everybody up for the fight and the defense of Balal or whatever, I was like, man, what a jerk. Both him and me. What a jerk. Yeah, he's very unpredictable. Like him and Mira are just designed that way. They're meant to be like wild cards. What was the other scene we were talking about? Oh, the Grimoire scene? What was the line? Do you remember? That scene is crazy. Well, it would be like one of the last times you see his name, I would imagine. They go to the forest. That whole storyline is not bad, I don't think. Grimoire just trying to get his powers back, and then they find out like being near someone with a lot of magic can give you your powers back. And the Earth Mother's like, you should really go talk to Palin. And they're in the same room as Celis, and he's like, did you feel the magic coming off of her? Oh yeah. Well, that's got like a double whammy. Here's the actual fight. So yeah, so the storyline basically at this point, for anyone who hasn't read the books, and nobody's read this because I shared it with Mistral, but only a few people have seen this. Grimoire is trying to get his powers back. Everybody's powers have been negated, like House of M style, and he's trying to get magic back by any means necessary. And he finds out that like being close to someone with a lot of magical energy can potentially give him his powers back. And he has a rival, this guy named Rex, who's trying to do the same thing. And they both find out that like that's the case. So there's this character Celis who is possessed by a demon queen that has a lot of magical energy. So they're both trying to get their powers back from her, but she's got a lot of baggage and is easily manipulated and controlled by demons. So that's basically it. In this scene, like Rubrum, which is the name of one of the armies, and this like army of demons attack Bawal, which is another like army or kingdom rather. And they stick Celis in a tower because they know she's easy to be like manipulated by the demons. And Grimoire is there to protect her because he needs her to get his powers back. And Rex shows up and they decide to settle their differences in a room in the tower where Celis is, just so they can get their magic back and fight on their own terms. I'm glad Syndra wasn't a mama's boy. Yeah, he's got the mother connection like Sephiroth, but it's like a completely different connection. Like he hates his mom. He's not trying to like sail the cosmos like his mom. And obsessed with her like Sephiroth. He just doesn't he hates her and wants to like destroy the planet that she is the mother of. So I'll just pick up from here. But yeah, it's like Celis began to stare at something behind Grimoire as if Grimoire was no longer there. Are you alright? Grimoire asked of Celis' sudden change. What are you staring at? That's enough. Rex emerged through the same door Grimoire did, afraid to move Celis in her current state. Grimoire instead made his way to the other side of the room. I'll be taking Celis and her power. Rex entered Celis' view only for a moment before being replaced by Dante Mabius. Dante Mabius is basically Satan in our world. He is the devil. So the fact that I don't even remember that you sold your soul to the devil line, even though I just read this like yesterday. It's actually like he's talking about like you sold your soul to the devil, meaning Syndra, and the literal devil is standing in the same room as them technically. His black hair and red highlights a reminder of Celis' nightmares. The demon leader was only visible to her and she froze in place. She stood in the center of the room facing Dante, while Rex and Grimoire stood on opposite sides of her. The blue dragon's eye was still on her finger, and she could not push herself to remove it. Dante has like way more, he's got way more going on for him in book 3. He's not really super important to this book. I mean, he's important to this scene, but he's a lot more in book 3. You can sense it, can't you? Rex said as the two mages began to circle each other. Grimoire looked down at his hands as they did. He didn't want to openly admit it to Rex, but he could feel the same power that he was speaking of. The magic was practically encompassing the room, the entire room they were in, and Grimoire could feel his power returning. You don't need these men, Dante said with a laugh. They are so desperately attached to their magic, it's pathetic. They're both here seeking help from you, because it comes naturally to you. They are weak. Grimoire conjured a ball of water in his hand as Rex surrounded one of his hands with fire magic. Two mages couldn't help but smile at the return of their gifts. Magic, Grimoire said quietly. It's back, Rex said in awe of his own power. Yo, Coffee Quills is raiding with a party of 19. Let's go. More coffee. What's going on, Coffee? Thank you so much for the raid. I bring writers and friends of writers. That's awesome. How was your stream? Did you get a lot done? And typos, apparently. No worries. JC, what's up? Writer Sylvie, how's it going? Thank you so much for the follow. Writer Sylvie, thank you so much for the follow. How's everybody doing tonight? What's everybody working on? I'm reading some of my old writing. Angel in Darkness, thank you so much for the follow. 19 is my favorite number, by the way. So you rated with a party of 19. It's my favorite number. Completely useless information for you, but there you go. JC, thank you so much for the follow. I'll switch to full screen here for a second. What's going on, everybody? How's it going? You are editing a novella. Nice. Nice. So I game and I write and I read a lot on stream. More reading than writing lately. I've noticed a lot of people in this category do a lot of like writing sprints and stuff. I'm not really doing that as much. Just so people know, that's kind of we've just been reading a lot of my old work. But to give you a little backstory about me, oh, Oracle of Dust, thank you so much for the raid as well. What is going on? Oh, I made my camera can track me. Check this out. This camera is really cool. I just put my hand up like this and it stops. Thank you so much for the raid, Oracle of Dusk. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Coffee, if you have to go sleep or eat or something, I totally understand. The double raid, yeah, thank you so much. Oh, Sylvie was going to bed. Have a great night, Sylvie. Thank you so much for following and coming through on the raid. I appreciate it. Random stream updates and tweaks. Headache tonight. Nothing too intense. I had a really long day today, so I have no idea how long I'm going tonight either. A lot longer now that we have 30 people in here. I had to get like a physical today, and they took blood, and I had to wake up way late, earlier than I normally do. I was hoping to double up the party. Yeah, you literally came in like 5 minutes apart. Welcome, Oracle. How was your stream? What were you working on tonight? Cupid's Rebellion and Anti-BS Romance. Okay, sounds good. It's coming out in the next few days, so I'm in the must be perfect bits. Ooh. It's 3 p.m. for me, lunch? It's like 1 in the morning for me. What is it coming out on? Coffee? If you didn't step away yet. Angel in Darkness, thank you so much for the follow. Get some rest. Enjoy. Lecturing. Sounds cool. I don't know what you're lecturing on, but sounds like a good time. 2024 is Leap into Novellas. 12 novellas in 12 genres across 12 months. Nice. That's the kind of stuff that I like. I like doing challenges like that. We've done a lot of those on my YouTube channel. I also run a YouTube channel called Fantasy Distractions. Please go sub. I need subs. We only have 62 now subs. I have a command for that. Hopefully it works properly. Oh no, the ads. Yeah, I run a YouTube channel called Fantasy Distractions where I write like 99% of the stories, and then my friends that I met through Twitch narrate and voice act them. But I write most of the stories for it. I think there's only been 2 or 3 stories that I did not write myself. But where I was going with that was on that channel, I have a series called Masks of Ether where I challenge myself to write a chapter a week for like 34 weeks. And those chapters were like long, like Fantasy Distractions. Each episode's like 4 pages, 2 to 4 pages. And then after that, our first season of Fantasy Distractions, I did 75 short stories in 50 weeks. So little challenges like that, where it's like 12 novellas in 12 months, that's a little trickier. But little challenges like that, I dig that stuff. I'm all about that. Yeah, definitely link me, Coffee. I'm curious. Alice, I'm sorry you had ads. Ads are the worst. But welcome back. Sounds like you'd like Stories on Fire in January and September. Interesting. Leap into Novellas 2024. Interesting. I see. This is crazy. This is how long is like one of them comes out on my birthday. My birthday is also on the 19th of May, which is why 19 is my favorite number. So one of your books actually comes out on my birthday this year. I'm gonna bookmark the page. I will definitely check these out. Yeah, like around about, I don't know if I've probably written a novella, but just didn't call it a novella. um, about how long are your novellas? Matt, don't mind you getting you a bit of coinage. The lady writes those stories on fire. I'll have to check that out. 20 to 40K. Okay, so let me see. So like my side stories I write are about like 100 pages. Would those be considered novellas? That's probably the closest I got. Let me see how long the Mira side story was. I'm gonna end up activating this camera by accident. That's the only problem with this camera, as cool as it is. I'm Italian, so I talk with my hands a lot. And I end up activating it by accident. That's about 28,000 words. So yeah, so my prequel and the Mira side story are probably like considered novellas. That Cupid's around 35K. It's pretty solid. So that's like probably somewhere in between, right? So like the two stories I'm talking about are like 100 pages each in Google Docs, double spaced. So it's probably about like somewhere between 100 and 200 pages. Pretty solid. Pretty long length to be doing one a month. But I dig it. Like I said, I'm into those kind of challenges. I dig it. Tell you guys a little bit more about me. We were actually reading stuff from my second book. Um, but it's complicated. My whole writing career is kind of complicated. I self-published about like 8 years ago, give or take, and then I got picked up by a publisher like 2 years after that, and it was like a startup publishing company. Like I didn't have to pay or anything. It wasn't like one of those. It was like an actual like publishing company, but it was like a startup, and it was a lot of like young authors in there, and as it went on, there were some red flags, but you know, I was like, my book's gonna be out traditionally published. I could say I'm like a published author, you know. It could open doors and avenues for me, so I rode the wave to see what would happen. They decided to rebrand out of nowhere, which was another red flag. Yeah, it was an experience. And then so I was like, okay. I was like, now's my chance to get out. I should probably get out. But then they were like, "Hey, we want you to like be the flagship title for the rebrand." And they were also bringing in a bunch of like older authors. So like the problem was when it was just me and a bunch of like young authors, I I was working. I was working at Target at the time. And when their books would come out, because even though mine was like self-published and done, they were still releasing mine like a year after I joined them. Because they wanted to do their own edits and whatever, their own covers, stuff like that. It's fine. But the problem was like a lot of the younger authors' books came out before mine, and I would buy them. I bought like every book that this company released. I bought so I could like share, read, promote. You know, I wanted to be a team player. When it came time for my book to come out, none of them had money, so they did not buy my book. So I bought all of their books. They did not buy my book. Um, so that was kind of frustrating. But then I was like, oh, when they did the rebrand, I was like, well, it's going to be a lot of like older authors who probably have jobs aside from writing, if writing isn't their actual job. So like, if I'm the flagship title and my book comes out, even if the company like falls apart, at least like all of these people would have bought my book. It would make my Amazon rank go up, maybe be a bestseller, and even if just like the people that were also in the company like read my book, that's something. And then like the weekend before my book was supposed to launch and relaunch this rebrand, the owner sends an email and is like, "We're shutting down the company." Literally 2 days. It was 2 days before my book was gonna come out. Again, the second time. And that will kind of destroy your eagerness to write for a while, so I stopped writing for about like 2 years, and then I started Fantasy Distractions. So yeah, so that's my deal. That's my story, and that's how we got here. So yeah, that's what I've been through as a writer. But now I'm just kind of doing my own thing. I got back into writing about like a year or two after that went down. Started doing Fantasy Distractions and stuff like that, and then that's pretty much it. And now I just every once in a while do some streams like this where I just read a lot of. I have a lot of like old stuff that we've just been reading on stream. But Coffee, I appreciate the raid. Everybody coming through, I appreciate you, and that's my deal. Now we're just reading random stuff that I wrote a long time ago. Yeah, I appreciate that. Have a great lunch. Enjoy. Thank you for sharing your community with me. Yeah, I should honestly be editing while we do this. Thank you to everyone that followed from Coffee Stream. Oracle, thank you also for the raid. And all right, so what we were reading was like some stuff from my second book. That's actually the continuation of the one that I almost traditionally publish. Yeah, I mean it's like the thing that bothers me about it is like it's hard enough to achieve this dream that all of us have, like becoming published authors. I basically had it. Like, was it perfect? Not really. Did I know it was like a red flag? Maybe, but like, I had it like in the palm of my hand. I was published for a while, like the first round before they rebranded. I was published. I was doing signings. I was going to conventions. I was like a real like traditional published author. And then like to have it that close, and then to have it like kind of slip through your fingers, it really turned me off from writing and pursuing this anymore. Sadly, but I came back around. The love for writing overwhelmed the disappointment, I guess. But it was not an easy time. I can tell you that. It was not an easy time. We are reading very spoilery stuff for my book series. Essentially, there are these two characters that we have like a very like House of M situation in my book where there's a lot of people with magic and powers, and then there's a character that's so strong she can negate everything, and she negates everybody's powers, all magic. And like we do a year time skip between book 1 and book 2, and everybody's trying to figure out how to get their powers back. So there are these two mages, Grimoire and Rex. Grimoire is a water magic like specialist, and Rex is a fire magic specialist. And they both feel pretty useless without their magic, so they're really trying to get their magic back. There is this woman named Celis, who is a very strong magic user, but like her body like emits magic basically. So if you're near her, you can kind of like feel that there's like she's got a lot of magic in her. And she also happens to be possessed by a demon queen. So when she runs into other demons, it's very easy for them to manipulate her. And what happens is there's an army of demons and another army attacking another army. And this is like me making the super, super short condensed version of everything. But everyone's afraid that the demons are going to take control of Celis. So they stick her in a tower somewhere and they leave Grimoire to protect her. Rex is leading the army that's attacking the army that Grimoire is from. They both end up in the same room as Celis, and they're using the power that comes from Celes to like temporarily get their magic back. And that's kind of where we're at right now. They're using her to get their magic back temporarily. So that they can settle their differences and fight each other like on their terms. Instead of just two mages that are not like proficient at fighting, just like punching each other, you know? But that's where we're at. That's what we were reading before you guys read it. We're also reading some of my like other stuff that kind of takes place all around it. Which I will probably read at least maybe like these two, Darker Days, and I have this story called The City Maker. So we might read those two, and then maybe I'll call it. I did wake up really early and get blood drawn, so we'll see how I feel after those two and this little bit. All right, where was I at? We were here. Celes began to stare at something behind Grimoire, as if Grimoire was no longer there. Oh, you are right? Grimoire asked of Celes' sudden change. What are you staring at? That's enough. Rex emerged through the same door Grimoire did. Afraid to move Celes in her current state, Grimoire instead made his way to the other side of the room. I'll be taking Celes and her power. Rex entered Celes' view for only a moment, before being replaced by Dante Mabius. Dante Mabius is like a demon. He's basically the devil in our world, so the devil shows up. Always good when you're possessed by a demon queen. His black hair and red highlights a reminder of Celes' nightmares. The demon leader was only visible to her, and she froze in place. She stood in the center of the room facing Dante, while Rex and Grimoire stood on opposite sides of her. The blue dragon's eye was still on her finger, and she could not push herself to remove it. So, like, on top of just naturally having so much magical power that she could actually use magic, even with this character, Meryl, who's, like, negating all the powers, she has a ring that enhances magic as well. So that's the blue dragon's eye is a ring on her finger that enhances your magic abilities when you're wearing it. You can sense it, can't you? Rex said as the two mages began to circle each other. Grimoire looked down at his hands as they did. He didn't want to openly admit it to Rex, but he could feel the same power that he was speaking of. The magic was practically encompassing the entire room they were in, and Grimoire could feel his power returning. You don't need these men, Dante said with a laugh. They are so desperately attached to their magic, it's pathetic. They're both here seeking help from you, because it comes naturally to you. They are weak. Grimoire conjured a small ball of water in his hand as Rex surrounded one of his hands with fire magic. The two mages couldn't help but smile at the return of their gifts. Magic, Grimoire said quietly. It's back, Rex said in awe of his own power. Then shall we settle this once and for all? Grimoire asked as he conjured a second ball of water in his other hand. Kill you, take Celes, and become the only mage on Chroma capable of wielding magic again? Almost sounds too easy. Rex shot fire at Grimoire, just missing Celes. Don't be killed as an innocent bystander, Dante said. The whole time he was talking, Celes was fixated on his sharp teeth. She ignored the fire and water passing her face. Show them your true power. As the two mages continued to battle, Celes just stood there shaking her head at Dante, refusing to give in to his will. You know I can just make you do whatever I want, Celes. Dante walked closer to her. I was hoping you would do this on your own. Embrace what you truly are. I'm nothing like you, Celes replied. Her response was out loud and caused the two mages to stop fighting. They could not see the man she was talking to. Did she say something? Rex asked, the fire still burning on his hands. I think so, Grimoire replied. You can give them their powers back just by being in the same room. You could also take them away to make yourself stronger. Dante pointed at Grimoire. This man is one of the good guys on Chroma, yet his past is full of mischievous deeds, and now his selfishness is going to get him killed. Dante pointed to Rex next. This man thinks his role on Chroma is that of a king, but he's hardly worthy of being called a peon. Synthro manipulated him easily because he's weak. If there were ever two men who deserve to be taught a brutal life lesson, it's these two. I won't do it, Celes said. Celis, who are you talking to? Asked Grimoire. She's weird. We both know she's weird, right? Just let her talk to whoever she's talking to and let's settle this. Rex shot another blast of fire, but this time when it passed Celis, it dissipated before reaching Grimoire. I was hoping we wouldn't have to do this the hard way. Dante put one hand on Celis' shoulder, then turned into smoke. The smoke made its way into Celis' body through the pores on her face. Celis began to shake violently. What is happening? Grimoire asked. Celis, what is happening to you? We need to stop her, Rex said. We need to stop her, Rex said. I don't know how, but we need to stop whatever she's doing. I don't know how to help her, added Grimoire. The magic he was making was starting to fade, and he could feel the magic leaving his body. If anything happens to her, we might lose magic forever. I can already feel it leaving my body. Rex ran over to Celis and tried to grab her, but her body was extremely hot. She isn't in danger. Grimoire noticed from Rex's reaction to touching her. She's not hurt, dying, or losing her magic. She's taking ours. She's absorbing our magic instead of us absorbing hers? Rex tried to make fire with his hands again, but he could not. Celis closed her eyes and the shaking stopped. She clenched her fists. I'm trying to fight, but I can't. Celis, you have to fight whatever this is. Grimoire tried to get closer to her, but the heat that Rex felt was now surrounding her, and it was becoming harder to breathe in the tower they were in. Celis's eyes shot open. Her pupils were no longer completely white. Instead, they were shifting from red to blue, as the fire and water magic of Grimoire and Rex began to consume her body. Dante reappeared in front of her. He had a devilish grin on his face as her power continued to rise. They are weak, he reminded her. They are unworthy of being in the same room as you. Celis turned her head and looked at Rex. The stare was enough to freeze Rex in place. Celis. Rex put his hand out to calm her down, but Celis put her hand out in his direction as well. The magical essence inside Rex began to leave his body through his fingertips and fly over to Celis as she began to consume him. With each bit of energy leaving his body, the skin on his hand began to disappear as well, revealing his bones. That's it. Show them what a true god looks like. Dante once again possessed Celis's body, and the process became faster. In mere seconds, Rex was consumed and turned to dust. Even the bones disintegrated in front of her. My god. Grimoire looked at the pile of dust that used to be his rival. You're a monster. Dante emerged from Celis, and this time he was visible to Grimoire. She isn't the monster, Dante assured him. You're going to fuel the destruction of your beloved Bawal. I just want you to know who truly killed you, Dragon Knight. Who are you? Grimoire went to grab Dante, but he flew backwards and turned to smoke once more, before entering Celis. Her eyes were no longer shifting to blue, and were purely red, as a simple glance turned Grimoire to dust. It's pretty intense. All right. Let's see. So we can do Darker Days or The City Maker, which is just copy of Rhea story in all capitals with an exclamation mark. Thank you, Mistral. Thanks. Thank you. Maybe we only do one. This one's 23 pages. This is a full short story, like beginning and end. Like 23-page short story I wrote for a contest. This is not finished. A 25-page not finished side story. So Darker Days takes place the area that Dre and Livy were in the prologue to the Mira story that we read. It takes place on that island before Dre and Livy get there. So it's like these two warring kingdoms that are kind of like dealing with, they're about to go to war basically. And one side is like a barbarian village, and the other side is like an actual like legitimate kingdom. Excuse me. And they the daughters of the leaders are friends, like prior to their two respective villages and kingdoms going to war with each other. So the two daughters are trying to prevent the war from happening. And then the demons that were the problem in the Mira story show up, and that's the problem. The one that I wrote for the contest, so those other side stories take place between like book 3 and 4. This story, I technically wrote it before I knew any of this stuff. This story actually takes place right before book 5. So it's a little all over the place. But if you remember Oliver Milwick from the Mira side story, and he's in book 2 as well. This follows his son. His son is trying to retrieve this item called the City Maker. Well, it's called Runacita or something like that. It's an Italian word that means city maker. His son is trying to find the City Maker so he can help rebuild Chroma into like what we have today. Essentially, it's gonna help him like create cities a lot easier. Hence, the City Maker. Super spoilery stuff. There is another cat girl in the story. I don't remember if I say who the parents are in the story. So, I don't know. We can read this one or the other one. This one's like actually like done. I finished it and entered it into a contest that I did not win. So this is it's also first person. From his name's Patraya, from Oliver Milwick's son's perspective. Rhea is she's pretty. We can read this one just because it's done. We'll save Darker Days for next time. These little like superhero ones we'll do next time too. Well, maybe Thursday. We'll fool around with those. The Variant one is really dark though. It's pretty messed up. It's like more horror than it is like fantasy. I'll leave Darker Days open just in case I'm feeling it. But we'll see. All right. So this is called the City Maker. Also takes place in the Soldier's Crest universe. I mean, it's a fun little story. It's not like super spoilery, I don't think. I did have some help writing this. From the girls that I used to work with at Anime Castle, so I haven't read it in a while, but it hopefully sounds like my writing. Not too much of their influence, hopefully, but we'll see. I am not an adventurer. Contrary to my personality, as this unorthodox introduction is, I thought that I should first introduce myself with what I am not, rather than who I am. So again, I repeat myself. I have never been, and never will be, an adventurer. I have nothing against adventuring, or adventures. I respect those brave enough to go explore places where no human has dared gone before. If anything, it is almost expected that I become an adventurer. I live in a new world that, even after hundreds of years of rebirth, is just finally reaching the cusp of advancing out of the Dark Ages. It's just that lately, I find myself in the midst of the most dangerous and exciting situations by happenstance. But I digress. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Patraya Milwick, and while I am not a daring adventurer, I am an extraordinarily intelligent and innovative mechanic. I'm not trying to be arrogant. I really am an extraordinarily intelligent and innovative mechanic. In fact, I'm the only living human who has managed to utilize machines and metals skillfully enough to rival ancient metal crafters and mechanics. I haven't always been considered a mechanic. Due to my fascination with learning, I collected many of the banned ancient texts about the amazing inventions of the pre-apocalyptic world, much to the dismay of my peers, who simply wanted to go out and play. I was born a genius, but tinkering was a habit that came much later in my life. I began with more humble roots as a clockmaker. My family has always been unique in a sense that we embrace change and technology. Since the end of the old Earth and its subsequent rebirth as the giant continent of Chroma, the inhabitants of Chroma are suspicious of any sign of technological advancement. Up until the final demon invasion, only a few remnants of the old Earth remained, and those that were not in use by the different kingdoms were considered forbidden. It's even a miracle that humanity has advanced to what would have been considered the Dark Ages on Old Earth. Since the days of when Old Earth was at its prime to this very day, my family has always been a family of clockmakers. Even after much of the world was destroyed and what remained changed beyond recognition, we continued tinkering with any pieces of scrap metal and technology we could salvage, much to the dismay of our neighbors. But during a demon invasion, being a clockmaker isn't the best occupation to have, especially when your family is the closest thing to an inventor the world has to offer. No one needed clocks or watches anymore. They needed old technology that could shield hundreds of people. They needed banned technology that could level houses in a blink of an eye. What had to adapt in order for our family to remain useful in society? We had to adapt in order for our family to remain useful in society. Since then, my family has been approached by heroes and angels to assist them in making machines that would help change the result of battles between demons swarming in from the moon. Now that the war is won and peace has finally returned to Chroma, we've been tasked with a new job. We are to rebuild the remains of Chroma and create new livable land on the islands surrounding the giant continent. What was once my family's quirky hobby literally overnight became the world's salvation. Yet even a family of geniuses cannot work fast enough to rebuild the entire known world, let alone create a new world. Even with the demons gone, there's still an ever-expanding army of orcs and goblins threatening our lives and homes. While I myself may not be able to work fast enough to rebuild the world, I may have the answer lying somewhere in one of my books. I have books on technology from before the first apocalypse, but I lack the materials to rebuild most of it. While most of the latter books described how to build and use weapons, but there was one text while most of the later books described how to build and use weapons, I could read, don't worry. But there was one, there's probably shouldn't be a but here. There was one text I found most useful in my endeavors to rebuild the world. The Diary of an Ancient Scientist and Inventor, Desya Dragovich. Most of the diagrams in the girl that used to help me work out this story when I worked at Anime Castle, obsessed with names like this. This was definitely her. Not mine. Definitely. Yo, Stella, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate that. How are you doing tonight? Most of the diagrams in the book showed useful but improbable artifacts, such as machines that could transmute elements by acceleration or create lasers that heal wounds. Others showed more practical and realistic machines, like one that could change the weather in a small area. The main problem with the text was that I could not read it. The majority of the text was written in a forgotten language, making it a challenge for me to recreate any of the artifacts or understand their purpose. I was heavily dependent on the few words that I could read, and the diagrams provided in order to understand the purpose and function of the machines depicted in the diary. You're doing well. I'm happy to hear. We're just chill. We're reading some of my old things that I wrote. I wrote this short story that's basically set in the universe of my main book series, but I wrote it in a way that I can enter it into a contest that I didn't win, and I wrote it 100 years ago. So we're just reading it for funsies. What caught my eye was an entry labeled Renacita, the city maker. There was only one diagram of a city rising from the ashes of ruin and rubble, and its function was written entirely in the old language. To this day, I'm not even sure what came over me, or why I felt it was of the utmost importance that I find this Renacita. But somewhere along the restoration process, I became fevered with the thought that only the city maker could be our best hope for the future. With our quickly expanding population and pending ogre an orc crisis, and thieves controlling many valuable resources, we're in dire need of this Renacita. As I've previously aforementioned, I'm no adventurer. I'm a philosopher, a scientist, an engineer, a mechanic, but I have no skills or traits that would help me find the Renacita. So I decided to take the initiative and find myself someone trustworthy enough to find the Renacita for me. For a while, I searched for the proper treasure hunter, but as most of them were essentially thieves, I found most of them quite unpleasant and, unsurprisingly, quite dishonest. My greatest mistake was to inform the council leading the restoration process of my intentions. Within minutes of my proposal, they unanimously decided to find a crew loyal to them to help me acquire the artifact. They shortly began to regret their decision, as most of the people subsequently contacted chose to strike out on their own after receiving payment, likely to find and use it as leverage against the council. Months passed, and the council seemed to leave the tasks for me to solve on my own once more. There are some typos, which is probably why I didn't win the contest. The damage had already been done, however. The worst part of mercenaries had been unearthed. The worst sort of mercenaries had been unearthed. Now, in addition to planning for the possibility that the Renacita was heavily guarded by advanced ancient technology, I now had to factor in competition from the most unsavory sort of people imaginable. For the first time in my life, I realized that I needed someone to help me. I had to actively search for trustworthy help. This is how I came to the world of adventuring. Even with the government's help, I couldn't procure the items needed from the relative safety of my home. I needed to go out myself in the company of an experienced treasure hunter, but there was no way I could travel with just anyone. A sterile environment is the safest environment, and a dirty warmonger could be contaminated with filthy diseases. No, I needed to travel with someone who had an understanding of basic hygiene. The difficulty was finding this person. Who on this marred planet could possibly be my ideal clean adventurer? I remember when we were writing this, we wanted him to just be like, the upper class of Chroma, if there is such a thing, in like a post-apocalyptic world. Okay. After much inner discussion with myself, I suddenly realized that the answer I seeked was the same as the question I asked myself. During the demon invasion, I heard stories of heroes, angels, and elves working together on the front lines. None of them would do, however. Elves and angels did not bother themselves with treasure hunting, even if the reason for procuring them were historical or beneficial. And the few trustworthy humans that I've encountered so far did not pay much attention to their hygiene. In fact, none of them were as clean or adventurous as the women with feline origin. A Catwoman hybrid, if you will. The woman I originally sought after was a cat girl whose occupation included piracy while she was traveling the seas, and the occasional thievery when she happened to be on land. Fascinating, isn't it? While her background and current occupation suggest that she's nothing more than a high-stakes thief, she has proven herself as a capable and honorable fighter. There were even rumors that she saved the... I think I added some of this in after we lost the contest. I don't think I would mention Valak. He's the main character of my first book. I don't think I would mention this in just like a random contest. There were even rumors that she saved the life of the great hero Valak. On a biological note, she is one of the 3 cat girls in existence and the mother of the 2 other existing ones. It has been said that she was raised in a ninja village, which allows for her heightened agility and senses were her most evident advantage, which she made use of as a pirate. Pirates tend to be a repugnant lot, and this woman was anything but. As half a cat, she was capable of maintaining her hygiene to an acceptable level and bathed regularly, just the sort of companionship I seeked on this adventure. Unfortunately, this infamous pirate Mouser was unavailable, chasing a more intriguing prize. In other words, she was more interested in filling her pockets with gold than with artifacts. But it was not all for naught. She offered me the services of her daughter, an aspiring adventurer of the treasure-seeking variety. Thus far, it seemed perfect. When I imagined my first adventure, I assumed I would quickly meet my adventuring company in an inn, head out fully stocked with adventuring equipment, and find the artifact before the season changed. I had proudly packed my first adventuring bag with my toolkit, food and water rations, A small lantern, a flintstone for fires and torches, bedding, clean clothes, and of course my cleaning pads and sanitary napkins. I didn't bring any adventuring tools because I assumed my companion would supply those. Not once did it cross my mind that it would rain on the day I was supposed to meet my companion. I don't dislike the rain, but the meeting place was outside, in the middle of a marsh, miles away from anything resembling civilization. I also didn't expect her to be a day late. I was forced to make a makeshift tent out of my bedding to stave off the rain and use my clean clothes as a bed. Marshes are teeming with critters of all sorts, and my bedding tent didn't seem to keep them out. Needless to say, I didn't sleep much that night. The entire adventuring business was looking grim from the very beginning, and I hadn't even met my companion. When morning came, I had almost given up on finding the Renacita until I heard a voice behind me. Patria Milwake, the voice said with a musical lilt to it. Patria Milwake, the voice said again, this time more fiercely. It took a moment for my sleep-fogged brain to process my own name. As I tried to look at who or what was calling me, I turned right into her. After my initial pain and disorientation, I tried to look at my companion. First thing I noticed about her was that she was sitting in the marsh rubbing her forehead. Her mess of brown hair was shaped almost like a mane around her pretty face. Her eyes were a bright greenish-yellow color and cat-like in shape. After ogling her for far too long, I noticed the cat ears. You must be, I said, still captivated by her eyes as she stood. Rhea Stormwillow, treasure hunting extraordinaire, and apparently the babysitter of dim-witted boys, she said, shaking mud off her leather armor. You're, I said, struggling for words. Beautiful, wonderful, amazing, she said with a coy smile on her face. My, we haven't even started and already you're praising me. You're late, I said, finally finding my voice. I've been waiting for you for an entire day in the middle of a marsh, and here you are waltzing in, with no apparent gear, might I add, far away from civilizations and hospitals of any kind. I hired you to protect me, not have me wait for you. We're in the middle of a marsh. I can't build anything here without water and mud getting into the equipment. How do you expect us to defend ourselves when all you have is a utility belt and 2 blades? What are you gonna do? Sway your tail at bad guys and lull them to sleep? And how do you expect to camp without any gear? Unless you have some sort of magical camping gear and food in that belt, which I highly doubt, you're gonna have... Then she slapped me. I was shocked. No one had ever hit me before. Let's get this straight. You tell me what to do. You may be paying me to find your artifact for you, but my business is my own. I decide what to bring. I decide what has to be done. Before I could interject, she continued on. Spartan, have a great night, man. Why'd you call me smelly? Have a good night, man. I appreciate you. Someday we'll game again. I don't know when. Everybody's been ditching. Myself included. You call yourself a genius, but you failed to realize that the moment you went to the council for help, treasure hunters, mercenaries, and thieves... Thank you, Spartan. Thank you for the jump scare. Jay, have a great night. Thank you so much for coming through, and I appreciate the follow. Thank you so much. I gotta remember to follow Coffee when I end stream too. I gotta go follow her for sure. He or she. I don't ditch. I democracy. Nice. You're lucky you could even get on the servers for Helldivers. I have to sneeze. I'm gonna mute real quick. Hold on. Okay. You're lucky you could even get on the servers for Helldivers. I've heard nightmare stories. Okay. You call yourself a genius, but you failed to realize that the moment you went to the council for help, treasure hunters, mercenaries, and thieves everywhere started running around Chroma looking for artifacts that they think will make them rich. We have people who got no job and get on early. Okay, fair enough. No one knows where to begin looking, and they think that you do. I had you out in this march because I needed to mask your scent. You smell like a city boy, and you would have attracted worse creatures than those living here. I already cleared the marsh of the most dangerous beasts, so you are safe. In addition, it's a marsh. I suppose you don't get out much, but there are stories of marsh spirits that lead wanderers to their deaths. Many are still superstitious, which will drive some people off. Besides, I kept watch over you the entire night to make sure that no one tried to kill you for a map that I'm guessing you don't have, because if you did, you would have known that there's an underground structure nearby. If you join up a friend, you're joining their server so you could skip the queue. Ah, interesting. There's a little workaround. Okay. Yeah, the game looks interesting, but I'm gonna wait until they fix the servers before I do anything. I gotta get Final Fantasy VII Rebirth out of my system first, anyway. So, uh, I will be willing to play that game, but I'm gonna let them get things figured out a little bit first. That marked the second time I was rendered speechless. Rhea had sufficiently proven her forethought and began walking away, but not before I noticed a smug look on her face. I probably would have been more angry if I hadn't been distracted by her swaying tail. In all of my excitement, I had forgotten that I didn't know where the Renacita was, and that there would be other treasure hunters trying to steal it from us. That's fair. Focus on your Final Fantasy. Democracy will still be there. How do you know where the Renacita is? I asked as we started to leave the marsh and entered a thick, dark forest. I took a quick look overhead to make sure that there weren't any creatures in the branches. I don't, but I've done my fair share of adventuring and I have a knack for finding what I want, she said, not once looking at me, her eyes searching for a path. Then why do you think it's here? Do you not pay attention? I've been doing this for a while now. There are a few underground structures scattered all over Chroma, and they're all linked together by the name Desya Dragovich. When I was told you found the Renacita in Dragovich's journal, I knew it had to be this site, because it's the only one I haven't been to yet. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. Now can we please get going before it begins to rain again? She walked ahead at a fast pace, having lost all patience with me. Not wanting to get left behind, I began to sprint after her. By the time I finally caught up to Rhea, I was already breathing heavily. How much further? I panted, my hands automatically reaching for my water pouch. We're already here, she said, looking ahead. I looked up and was once again rendered speechless. The glade that we had entered seemed to have come out of an ancient fairy tale. It was a small clearing in the middle of the forest with a small waterfall pouring into a pool. But while it was surrounded by the same trees that made the forest seem dark and foreboding, the glade was bright and welcoming. I took out my notebook to sketch the area when Rhea started talking. We'll camp here and begin exploring tomorrow. There's no use going in now if you're going to collapse in the middle of the cave, she said as she began to sit under a tree. What cave? I asked. I only see a waterfall. There's a cave behind the waterfall leading into Dragovich's labs, she said. You should get some rest. We have a long day ahead of us. There was almost a gentle tone in her voice, as though she was beginning to soften up. I'm going to wash and dry my bedding and clothes before I sleep. Are you really going to sleep on the ground like an animal? I asked. Rhea glared at me and in a split second shimmied up the tree. You could go ahead and sleep on the ground like an animal. I heard no trace of gentleness remaining. Try not to scream too much tonight. The next day we finally started our journey into the cave. I really don't remember her just shimmying up and sleeping in the tree. It's very important that we take our time exploring, I began to explain. But she stopped in her tracks. I almost walked into her and only stopped myself when her tail hit me. Is something wrong? I asked. She turned around and pointed at my face. Listen here. I froze in place. Do you know who the hell I am? The redundancy made my head hurt, and I started to regret hiring her, but I played along. Rhea Stormwillow, I answered, trying to muffle a yawn. The last thing I needed was for her to yell at me for lack of enthusiasm. Rhea Stormwillow, treasure hunting extraordinaire. Of course, how could I forget the title? She only repeated it after every question I asked. I've been in many caves before. This is nothing special. We'll be in and out in a jiffy, and we'll have your little device. Her words cut deeply. Finding the Renacita would be a monumental discovery. It was, after all, the city maker of old. Any more interruptions? She was the one who had come to a complete stop, but I decided to quietly shake my head so we could carry on. Did she have another daughter? She does have another daughter. She doesn't have, where you are in the story, she does not have another daughter. She only has Laika in that story. So this is a brand new child. After the fact. Because Mira's like, she doesn't really like age normally. Mostly because of the because she has like spliced cells, but it also has to do with like the milk. She has like that magical milk that the father gets her. That also kind of slows her aging. So even though this takes place like in the future, it's still her kid from like she has her later on. Any more interruptions? She was the one who had come to a complete stop, but I decided to quietly shake my head so we could carry on. Surprisingly, we made our way through the cave with little difficulty. Once we reached the end of the cave, Rhea, excuse me, cut down a web with one of her blades. I noticed that she preferred to wield her two cutlasses over her assortment of other small blades. Beyond the web, we found a large box. I found it curious that no one had discovered this before, and rather cliché to have a treasure chest at the end of a cave. We approached it nonetheless, and I stood far behind Rhea per her direction. She opened the box and found the box completely empty. Rhea tipped it over and examined the bottom of the box, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. She looked inside it as if something would be stuck to the bottom, but found nothing there either. Understandable. Rhea seems a little bougie. She's a little bougie, I guess. I don't know if anybody ever said that word to me, like ever when I wrote this, because I wrote this a long time ago. Can Laika live long too? Technically, yes. It's complicated. It's complicated. She could. I don't know, that's all I'm gonna say. You didn't think it would be this easy, did you? I said, walking beside her and taking a gander into the empty box myself. You're a moron, she said, and my face immediately found my palm. There's more than meets the eye. This is just the start of the runes. I told you that there was an underground lab here, remember? Rhea, like our mother, would occasionally drag the pronunciation of R's in her words. If her furry ears and tail failed to remind me, her speech when excited or angry could not fail to remind me of her feline background. But until now, I'd only heard the distinctive trailing R's in anger and annoyance at yours truly. Odd. I never annoy people at home. Wait, what phrase? Oh, you're a moron? I think, if that's what you're referring to, I think only Mira and Rhea say it. It's just that they say it a lot. If that's what you were referring to. Runes. This is just a cave that hasn't been filled yet. One of the few caves in a forest we left alone because we couldn't find it. Luckily you didn't find it, otherwise we wouldn't be here, she began to explain. The bottom of the box shows the indent where a lever would be, but whoever designed this place changed their minds. What do you mean they changed their minds? I asked before mentally slapping myself. She put her sword away and adjusted her leather armor, a hand-me-down from her mother, I gathered, as it didn't fit very well. Isn't it obvious? Whoever placed this box here had originally wanted to just keep an artifact in the box, and if someone tried to move it, it'd spring a trap. Something must have changed their mind to make them move it somewhere else, almost like they realized that it wasn't safe here, so they decided to keep this as a decoy. I was surprised that I had completely missed the obvious gray wall behind the moss and plant vines. Then again, the moss and plant vines were covered with undesirable creatures. Tentatively, I took a step back. I made the suggestion that we should clear it all away before probing the wall. Rhea completely ignored me. Oh, it's complicated. Yeah, it is complicated. I mean, I can explain it if you want. It's super spoilers, though. Something's not right, she said. The design of the wall was broken down into tiny squares, each protruding from its surface. Rhea began to feel each one very carefully. Curiosity got the better of me, and I began to take a few steps closer. I can DM it to you, Mistral, if you want, to not like openly spoil everything on YouTube and Twitch. Something's not right, she said. The design of the wall was broken down into tiny squares, each protruding from its surface. Rhea began to feel each one very carefully. Curiosity got the better of me, and I began to take a few steps closer. Upon further investigation, I noticed that the squares looked as though they were buttons rather than decoration. They could be pushed, something that I realized Rhea knew before I did. Yeah, I'll send you a DM with all that information. When she found what she had been looking for, she knocked 3 times on one of the squares before turning her head in my direction. You may want to stand back. Little did she know I had already taken multiple steps back again to avoid the small, dark objects skittering from behind the wall. Frightened by her knocking, skittering from behind the wall, frightened by her knocking. I was surprised she didn't seem to notice. I had actually stepped on an especially squishy bug. I used squishy again. I made a mental note to burn my shoes in addition to the rest of the clothes I was wearing once this adventure was over. She pushed the square in slowly at first until it came to a sudden stop. Had I been in her position, I would have given up and moved on to the next square, but she decided brute force was the answer and slammed her hand into the square. A wretched grinding noise that didn't seem proper for anything to make followed. The frightening ruckus forced me to take a startled hop backwards, mighty close to one of the stalagmites behind me. It took all of my being not to let out a screech, and I found great comfort in the fact that Rhea did not bear witness to any of this. Instead, she took a step back as the wall in front of her slid open. I jogged up to the newly exposed doorway and peered out into a labyrinth of small rooms. The rooms were connected by dirt paths, and I noticed that upon the floors and walls of each area were tiny indents or craters. It was hard to see from where I was, and I went out to explore, only to have my excitement halted by a hand on my chest. Careful, Rhea said. Another step and you'll be continuing this adventure on one leg. When I looked down, I only saw dirt. And though I was tempted to call her bluff, I opted to not take another step forward. And how do we cross? I asked, determined to investigate further. There are vines hanging from the ceiling, she said as she pointed up. The ceiling of this portion of the cave, which were more like ruins really, was solid compared to the area we entered from. Dangling from above us were green vines, separated by a few feet each. How high can you jump? I asked. No normal human could reach these vines without a machine or a very tall ladder. Give me a boost, she said, walking awfully close to me. Touching other people was something I was not very fond of. Despite my time in the marshes, in the cave, and around Rhea, I was still reluctant to put my hands on someone who spent most of her time inside caves. But nonetheless, I was eager to explore these rooms stretched out before us and take a closer look at those craters. I nodded and she began to remove her boots. Why are you doing that? I exclaimed, perhaps too loud as it echoed through the ruins. That's not sanitary, nor is it safe. We don't know what. Put out your hands, she said. I continued to stall. Was she wearing socks? Did she realize how much germs and bacteria could be on her feet? It's just feet, she said, exasperated as though she was reading my mind. She put her hands on her hips, and I could tell that what little patience she had for me was already growing dangerously thin. I hesitated once more before putting my lantern down. I squatted slightly to help launch her as I placed one hand over the other. She stepped with her surprisingly soft feet onto my hands and jumped higher than I had ever seen any creature jump before. Due to the tight shorts she was wearing, I could see every muscle in her thighs and calves react as she pushed herself off of me. As I stood there transfixed at the sight of her swinging on a vine, I forgot that I had touched her feet with my hands. Now on the vine, she used her bare feet, hands, and remarkable agility to swing from vine to vine before dropping to the other side. I couldn't help but cringe as she landed. You know, cringe, I use the word cringe a lot. It wasn't really a thing that people said. Like, I mean, this much back when I wrote these, so it's really weird. Let me see if I have the. Do I have the actual date of when I wrote the original? Where even was this? Here it is. 2013 is the last update to the original doc. Yeah, I used disgusted a lot in the first book. I noticed that too. When you mentioned I do it in book 2 quite a bit also. When you mentioned like talking about emotion instead of showing it. Yeah. I'm more like mindful of that stuff now. Wow. Yeah, 2013. It's crazy. Um I couldn't help but cringe as she landed, afraid that she would set off another trap. However, her landing was just as soft as her feet, and I cursed myself silently for not remembering that she was part cat. She looked around for a moment before discovering something on the ground. The dirt in front of me flipped over, revealing a metal bridge. I gathered up Rhea's boots and returned them to her once I reached the other side. Of course, I had to see how she did that. Right next to the end of the bridge was a small panel inside the ground. I knelt down as Rhea put her boots back on and saw numerous things on the panel besides buttons, used to deploy the trap and retract it. The time of day displayed by a digital clock was the most alluring piece to me. I immediately looked at my own watch to make sure the times matched, but they were off by exactly 3 hours and 32 minutes. I wanted to examine it further to find out if there was a reason for the time, but Rhea had already begun to make her way to the first room, and I refused to fall behind. That's cool. You kept all your work though. Yeah, that's why I try not to, like, when we're reading through them, I try not to make edits so much because I like to remember when I wrote it. And I don't have, like, I should just make like a thing that has that keeps track of it, I guess, but it's not something you think about like when you're writing it. So that when you go back and you're like, when did I write this? Now I know it was 2013 was the last time I edited it. It could have even been before, like a couple of years before that. It's the last edit that I did. Like if I revisited that story at any point and edited it, I guess I could check like edit history maybe, but 2013 is a pretty good like ballpark, I guess. Still a long time ago. It's over 10 years ago now. It's kind of crazy to think about. Yeah, things change over time. That's pretty crazy to think that 2013 is more than 10 years ago now. Okay. When we approached the first room, the metal door leading to it was firmly shut. I used to have stuff from high school till like 7 years ago, but then I dumped it because I wanted to redo stuff in my work. That's fair. Yeah, I like holding on to as much as I can. Just streaming aside, like going back and revisiting the like original Soldier's Crest is hilarious to me. Even if I wasn't like reading it to everybody watching. Uh it's still funny to go back and revisit. So I try to hold on to as much of the old stuff as I can. I eventually throw out old stuff. Yeah. Like I mean if I had it like physically instead of like written on Google Docs where I could just like leave it, it's a different story, but um it's nice to just like go back and into these. Sometimes I wish I kept it, but I feel like if I keep it, my brain sometimes goes back to the old version. Yeah, it's hard to let go of like your original vision sometimes, I've noticed. Um I mean, it's going to be a struggle to go back and redo the first book for sure. And make the changes that I want to change because like that has been the book to me for like so long, you know? So like the things that I want to change and want to redo, it's like I'm gonna either have to like side by side rewrite it into what I'm thinking I want it to be now, or I need to like write down key points that need to be in there and like write it from scratch again. So I'm not exactly sure how I'm gonna handle that, but that's an issue for future me. As long as you keep what's important to you, editing isn't too bad. Yeah, I guess it depends on how like how much of it I feel I need to restructure wording wise. That makes sense. Like if I find myself rewriting like a lot of paragraphs or fixing a lot of paragraphs, I might just like start from scratch and just put it together the best way I can with the way that I write now versus the way I wrote back then. Because if this is from 2013, then you know, like the early writings of my actual book are like I mean, I started writing it in high school, and I graduated high school in 2005. So it's been a long time. All right. When we approached the first room, the metal door leading to it was firmly shut. Well, this looks promising, I said. The constant traps and the endless corridors were definitely taking a toll on me. I kind of remember a time when I felt the need. Why is that a 1? Is that not a 1? Why is there a 1 there instead of an I? I'm leaving it, but I felt the need to make small talk. Dragovich must have really hated visitors if he went through all this trouble, I said with a nervous laugh. What was wrong with me? Pat, she finally said. Yes. Stop. I need to concentrate. Why are there 1s instead of I's? Am I crazy? Is that a lowercase L? What is that? No, that's literally a 1. Before I could offer her any form of assistance, Rhea began to run towards the door with one of her blades in her hand. Out of habit, I closed my eyes and braced myself for the... That does not look like an eye. Am I crazy? Am I bugging out? I closed my eyes and braced myself for the impending sound. When none came, I slowly opened my eyes, only to see her sheathing her weapon. Seconds felt like minutes as Rhea and I watched the door to see if anything would happen. Well, I began. As though to spite me, the floor began to tremble at that very moment. Maybe it's just the font? I mean, it's Times New Roman, which I stare at all the time. Okay, whatever. Metal and rock slid upon each other as they fell apart. It took me a moment to realize that she had cut the door down in that split second, hitting its weakest points to destabilize it. Rhea wasn't kidding when she could take care of herself without any additional equipment. I think we should try to be more quiet, I said hesitantly. I had been too afraid of getting humiliated by her yet again to mention it until now. If something else is down here, it already knows we're here, she replied, the corners of her mouth twitching. If it's not human, our scent would give us away before sound. If it is human, our entrance into the ruins have already announced our presence. That doesn't make me feel better at all. Look at this, Rhea said, interrupting my nervous contemplation. The room was larger than I expected. There were numerous lab tables lining the walls, each with thick plastic surfaces. In the middle of the room were 2 more tables side by side, covered by cages and jars. Rhea was inspecting them, but most of the jars had been broken. I feared she would cut herself, but I let her carry on. She was the expert, after all. The cages were for animals, I would imagine, test subjects. What were the jars for? I joined her side, keeping my hands off the jars. They could have also been for small animals or bugs, Rhea said, but they were most likely used to hold whatever materials whoever ran this lab was experimenting with. She lifted the base of one of the broken jars. There is a dried up liquid material inside this one. I don't recognize it, but if you look closely at the cage over here, she once again directed my attention, this time to the last cage on the right. The same liquid remains can be found on the bottom. I see. Then where are the remains? The cages aren't open. The remains are in the cages still. This was the first time I saw a look of concern on Rhea's face. The dust particles inside this one here are remains of whatever was inside. She explained. This cage here has bones that were ground down. It may be a far stretch, but if I had to guess, I would say whoever was experimenting in this lab was trying to create something with indestructible bones. Indestructible bones? How fascinating. I began to inspect the cages myself. Everything Rhea had said made sense. The remains in each cage had been reduced to powdered bone. I wanted to inspect the room further, but I heard a door open behind me. Not fascinating, she said as she walked out of the room. I turned to join her and stopped short when I saw large footprints in the dirt. The person experimenting may have succeeded. You said if something down here wasn't human, it probably smelled us already. I did say that. She peered off into the distance. We should move on. At a quicker pace, perhaps? I reached into my bag and removed a cloth, wiping down my hands. There's a second room over there. The artifact may be in one of these buildings. What if whatever made these footprints has the artifact? Let's hope that isn't the case, Rhea said. She walked cautiously ahead, allowing me to observe the rest of the ruins. A mixture of dirt and rock made up majority of it, but there were tiny craters in the dirt. Upon further analysis, it appeared as if the indents were made from small explosions. The second room's doors were already open, and there was glass on the ground outside of it. As we neared the door, Rhea took a step back. What's the matter? I asked. Yeah, so this is an actual eye. Why are there 1s? This is also an eye. I'm so confused. This is a 1. Anyway, that's gonna bother me. Why is it only like trying to correct it sometimes? Okay. Do you not smell that? She said. We were still relatively far from the door. She shielded her nose with her forearm and continued. I followed, and a putrid smell immediately assaulted me. I fought nausea as I brought my hand up to shield my nose and mouth. What in heaven's name is that? Each word forced me to inhale the disgusting smell. A dead goblin, Rhea said. I thought she was joking, but after entering the room myself, a dead goblin was sprawled out on the floor. Flies were dancing around its body. Strange to see only one. Are they usually in packs? Yes. My guess is this went straight from the group and found a quick end from something far stronger. Or something smarter, I added. As Rhea approached the body, I scanned this room as well. There were strong similarities to the first room, although the only tables were placed along the walls. In this room, I noticed that there were many vials on the tables, but every single one was empty. Incisions here and here, Rhea said, pointing at the goblin's throat, then its chest. This was done with a knife. I don't know why I said it like that. This was done with a knife. Then there are other humans down here? Who else knows of this artifact? A few others, after I took my request to the council. Rhea looked at me. I could see the disappointment in her eyes. Did she think we already lost this race? I know, it was foolish of me. No, shut up. Rhea stood and removed both of her blades from her waist. I moved closer as she turned towards the exit. I faced the door we entered from and we stood back to back for a moment. Her tail was hitting the inside of my left leg. What is it? I whispered. More goblins? They're surrounding the lab, Rhea said. I immediately began fumbling through my backpack. One of the goblins shattered a window. It fell through, landing mere feet from me. Rhea stepped in front of me and split its head in half. We need to get out. We ran towards the exit, but a goblin burst through the door. Rhea backed away from the door and crashed into my chest, which sent me barreling to the floor. More goblins joined it, and Rhea fought them off as best she could. I heard her blades clashing against their weapons of stone and sharpened bones. I once again searched through my bag and found what I was looking for. A pressurized gun that my father and I made using leftover pieces from our clockwork, enlisting the help of a mage to apply a water spell that would draw and heat water molecules from the air when triggered. Do you even have bullets for that thing? Rhea asked, blood dripping from her swords. Are you going to whack them to death or something? It's a pressure gun that has been modified with... Look out! Another goblin had entered the door behind her. She pivoted to strike, but I pulled the trigger of my gun. The goblin writhed on the floor, covered in burns from the pressurized steam. Whoa, what did you do? It's more of like a wow. Like a wow, what'd you do? It's one part mechanical pressure and another part water magic. It won't kill, but it'll incapacitate just about anything. What do you think? I was happy I'd finally impressed her, but a crashing sound and the ground shaking beneath my feet brought me back to reality. What was that? I say that a lot too. Brought back to reality. I say that a lot in the couple of things we've read recently. What was that? I shouted as the noises increased. The wall is cracking, Rhea said. I turned to see what she meant, but she grabbed the back of my pants and yanked me forward. The wall buckled as an ogre broke through. Bits of its flesh were missing and its bones were showing in different parts of its body. Run! Oh, well, she's dragging out her arm, but you know what I mean. I hardly remember what followed. We dashed out of the room, following the incline that would lead us above ground. I glanced back and saw more goblins pouring into the lab, only to be bludgeoned by the ogre. Once it had finished, it turned its attention back towards us. I looked at Rhea and chose not to look back again. I noticed the ground in this part of the ruins was vacant in places, revealing nothing but a dark abyss below. Watching my feet seemed like the best course, until I fell over a rock. I landed on my face as my backpack and gun flew into the air. The gun landed on the edge of a crevice large enough to swallow a person. My sanitary napkins flew in different directions. The lantern attached to my pack shattered between Rhea and I and started burning the surrounding area. I felt sick and absolutely disoriented for a moment before Rhea jumped over the fire and pulled me up by my arm. Where are me? I blurted, asking my head. It's written wrong on purpose, and then I read the next part wrong. Where are me? I blurted, shaking my head and wondering what idiocy had just escaped my mouth. I mean, where am I? Rhea slapped me, stunning me momentarily. Get it together, Patria, she yelled, her hand still raised and ready to strike again if I wasn't myself. Where is the ogre? I pulled away from her and turned around. The beast was a few feet away from us now. It had slowed its pace to a walk, either from fatigue or because it knew we were cornered. Well, I was cornered. Rhea could just jump over the flames again. I stood in front of her defensively. I don't know why, but I did. I had no weapon or any means of dealing with the beast, but I felt the urge to protect her. The ogre leaned forward, smelling the air through a nose that was half flesh and half bone. It went to roar, but an arrow flew out of the nearby darkness and struck it in the eye. Turning to our left, Ray and I saw two mercenaries. Ray is just like, just like slapping Patria all over the place. Ray and I saw two mercenaries there for our artifact, no doubt, both wielding bows. They both began to bombard the ogre, which only made it angry and caused it to stomp its feet. As the ground shook, I recalled seeing my gun near the crevice as I fell and turned my attention to it immediately. Rhea did as well, rushing to save it from falling over, but she was a second too late. She went over with it and my instincts took over. I threw myself at the floor in her direction and managed to catch her tail. I looked over into the darkness, my feline companion dangling over certain death. Don't worry, I have it, she yelled as she turned her head to show me the gun and give me a smile. Now pull me up. She was heavier than I thought she would be. I pulled as hard as I could, just enough to get her feet onto the side to help me get her over. When she was back on solid ground, the ogre had turned its focus back to us. It was full of arrows, yet showing no signs of slowing down. Just go without me, I told her, slowly collapsing onto the floor. Find the artifact and bring it to my father. Stop with the melodramatics. She rolled her eyes and put her hands on her hips. I know your lantern broke and your supplies scattered, but did you lose your scruples too when you fell on your face? What? Her use of the word scruples alone left me speechless. Is there another way out? I can't jump over the fire. He's left speechless a lot. We probably use that, too much. Yeah, genius. You brought a water gun, didn't you? She flashed my own weapon in my face as if I didn't know I brought it. It's not a water gun, I stressed. It's a highly pressurized steam gun. The ogre was close enough that I felt its hot breath on my body. Before I could faint, Rhea blasted the fire with the pressure gun. For a moment, the pressurized water molecules lowered the flames, and Rhea once again pulled me along, this time by my wrist. The fire closed up behind us and distracted the ogre momentarily. I knew I wouldn't be afraid for long, but I couldn't help but mourn the loss of my supplies. What I wouldn't give for one of those sanitary napkins at this moment. Rhea was more focused on other matters. She reached into a tiny pocket on the belt she was wearing and removed a small jar of black paste. She took out one of her swords, coated the blade in the sticky substance, and thrust it into the fire to ignite the blade. Let's go, she yelled, using her weapon to guide us. We ran towards the next doorway, where we could make out another lab. The mercenaries who helped us earlier popped out of an adjacent corridor. They pointed their bows at us, but the ogre arrived and barreled into them. Ray and I seized the opportunity and ran for the building. We rushed inside and slammed the door shut, her sword providing guidance. This room was much different from the others. There were chalkboards with designs and drawings on them that I did not recognize. There was only one table in this room, perfectly centered and just as perfectly clear. Hold this, Rhea said, handing me her sword. It felt odd in my hand, having never held a sword before, much less a burning one. I had already sweated quite more than I wanted to on this trip, and the heat was not helping. Rhea began to study the drawings on the wall. I walked up beside her, sweeping the sword along the wall, showing one picture at a time. Can you make out anything? I asked. Rhea began to tap her foot. This looks like the designs for a bomb, she said, a type of energy bomb. Geothermal, I said. It was the only word I recognized. A geothermal bomb, perhaps? The explosions may have caused the craters outside. Is this what happened to the planet? Rhea leaned against the wall and looked distraught. I turned the sword toward the wall to my left to reveal more of the wall and noticed a skeleton positioned against the wall sitting on the floor. Who's that? Rhea asked. One of the scientists, I'd wager. I knelt down to inspect further. There seems to be something in his chest. Rhea leaned over me, her sweat dripping onto my head. I couldn't help but move to put an end to any more germ sharing, but nearly fell over when I realized what I was staring at. Thank you. I'm almost done with this water, but I actually had two to start the night because if I went longer than this, I definitely would have drank that, dude. When I do these streams, I've been drinking like 3 bottles of water a stream, which is good because I'm always like dehydrated, but still. Mr. Germaphobe, yeah. This is it, I exclaimed, once again too loud for our current situation. The Renacita? Yes, it's exactly how it looks in the diary. Take your sword back. I began to pry at the dead man's chest cavity. Excuse me. Here, let me. Rhea turned towards the skeleton and kicked its chest. The Renacita fell to the ground and I picked it up right away. My first reaction was to hug it, despite its prior residence in a dead body, but I didn't want to further embarrass myself in front of Rhea. What does it do exactly? How does it work? She began to walk around me as I examined every inch of the artifact. Then she looked up, focusing behind me instead of into my eyes. I did not like that look. The ogre smashed through the door, taking the majority of the wall with it. We were once again on the run, this time on a narrower path. Despite the weight of the Renacita, I was ahead of Rhea for once. Thoughts of deadly traps flashed through my head as I ran towards an exit that I wasn't even sure existed. I ran faster than I had ever run in my life, until I heard a gasp and came to a sudden stop. When I turned around, I no longer saw the treasure hunter extraordinaire. Rhea! I shouted. As I started to backtrack, I saw her. A section of the floor had collapsed onto the caves below, creating a gaping hole separating the ogre and Rhea from myself. Get me out of here, she demanded, trying to climb the wall. Just jump out, I shouted back. It didn't seem much higher than the vines from earlier. You can make this. I can't, she yelled. I would need to push off the wall, but the dirt is too loose. I placed the Renacita down and leaned into the pit, extending my arm towards her. Rhea tried to jump and grab it, but was just out of reach. I was momentarily distracted by the sense of something flying over my head, followed by a fleshy thump. I looked behind me and saw one of the mercenaries from earlier lying on the floor. The ogre had the other in his hand and was ready to throw him at me as well. Neither were breathing, and both were bloody and missing limbs. I panicked as the ogre threw the other human missile at me. I caught the man and hit the ground viciously. He ricocheted off me and fell into the pit with Rhea. I held the back of my head but refused to go down and out again. Forcing myself up, I felt all of the muscles in my back spasm. I leaned back over the pit to discover that Rhea had used the dead man to provide her with the extra height needed to reach for me. Do something, anything, she said. But her feet were pushing the dead man into the rubble and I still couldn't reach her. Something else flew over my head, but this time it was the ogre itself. I nearly soiled myself as the monster looked down at me. I didn't know what to do about him, but I knew what to do about Rhea. Out of curiosity, do you have a profile picture for Synthro? I do not. I actually don't have any art. I have one piece of art for him, but it was from the OG one. I could show you after this. Yeah, they're just arguing. Do something, anything. I grabbed the Renacita and held it down into the pit, trying to add some extra length for Rhea. Rhea grabbed it by its tip and clung to it. As I tried in anguish to pull her up, a loud, audible click came from the Renacita. Once Rhea had collapsed on the ground beside me, the artifact began to expand and the front of it opened up. Rhea moved aside and I pointed the opening at the ogre. To this day, I still don't know why I did that. An adventurer's instinct, I suppose. Rhea grabbed my hands and helped me stand steady as a barrage of shimmering liquid covered the ogre's face and chest. The metallic substance was steaming and in a matter of seconds melted the ogre's body, bones and all. What was that? She asked, confused for the first time in our adventure. Her green and yellow eyes looked at me for an answer. I think this is what the Renacita does, I said, looking at the ogre's remains. The city maker, Renacita, Rhea said, peering down at what remained. She was silent for a few minutes before speaking. Metal is hard to come by. It was hard to come by, I corrected her with a smile. Let's go home. I need a bath. For a while we heard the cries of other adventurers and beasts trapped inside the cave as it began to collapse on itself. We once again found ourselves in the marsh, looking out at the rubble. It all comes full circle, I said. With this artifact we'll be able to rebuild our homes. Aye, Rhea said, dipping her sword into the marsh to extinguish the last of the flames. And that find will etch me into the history books, she proudly added. Will I see you again? I asked. That depends, she smiled. Need any more artifacts? Since the beginning of this adventure, this was the first time Rhea had genuinely smiled at me. In spite of myself, I smiled back. I really shouldn't have smiled back. After all, she had ridiculed and humiliated me at almost every turn, but I did. I couldn't have gotten the Renacita without her, and despite my constant failings, this was the one treasure hunt Rhea couldn't have survived without me. Well, I said, trying to keep down the laughter in my voice, I do have to more or less rebuild the entire world. Dragovich has an entire diary filled with artifacts that can help with this endeavor. I think I may still require your services until the world is fixed. That is, if you still want to put up with me. Once again, Rhea laughed, and for that one moment, I felt that nothing else mattered. This is such like a cheesy, dumb way to end the story. You can see why I did not win the contest. So I had written this with no plans for book 5 at the time. But book 5 is like a huge time skip. Like almost thank you, Mister. Thank you. Like an 18 to 20 year time skip. And Rhea is actually the main character of book 5. And Petraea is like rebuilding the world. There's like some crazy stuff in book 5. Do I have any in book 5 written? Let me see if I can find the picture for you first, though. The only picture I have of what Synthra was supposed to look like, it's very Sephiroth. I'm just warning you. This was a long time ago. Was drawn by my friend Hugh, who was drawing like when I was doing like the anime / like manga idea for the OG version. He drew manga covers for me, basically. Do I still have these? Hold on. I definitely have. Well, these are pictures that I think I showed on stream once before. Like before you knew the characters as well as you know them now. All right, so this is like he drew this logo for me too, with the angels on the side, which I thought was really cool. There's a bigger version of it. I actually have a giant blanket with this on it. I have T-shirts with this on it. It's just a really cool logo with angels. Okay. Yeah, like this is Alencia. But see, it's like it's 9. This was like meant to be for like issue 9 or episode 9. This is a picture of Alencia he drew. I totally forgot he even drew her, to be honest. I should get some like actual art of her made. She's cool. I like her character a lot. That's the cover of the book. That's me. This was an early take of Mira that he drew for me, my buddy Hugh. She doesn't even have her tail. Oh, he started drawing the tail here. You could kind of see it. This is Citan. This is actually my friend Hugh's character in when we played Final Fantasy 11 together. So that character, like Citan and Onikiri Maru, that was him and his brother's names. And I used to play with them. The character I played in 11 was Laika. So that's why Laika, Citan, and Onikirimaru are always together. That's why they're homies in the book. It's the cover again. This was the Dawn one. This is a Dawn picture that Hugh drew for me. That's nice you have characters inspired by your friends. Yeah, I tried to keep them like true to my friends, but also like their own characters in the books. So it's like adding to those characters, but also kind of keeping them like true to like things that I would expect from them, like in the like when we played. It's another shot of dawn. This was the you know, like the outline for dawn. Let's see. More dawn. Dawn isn't really in book 2 that much, actually. She is. You want more of her in Valak? She is more so in book 3, I believe. I gotta reread what I have for book 3. I'm only like 117 pages into book 3, I think. I gotta reread that next. This was meant to be Dessa, I believe. Yeah, that's what I just said. That she's not much in book 2. I think this was supposed to be Dessa, but Dessa became this. somehow this became this. Um I actually really like this picture of Dessa. I need to get art made of these characters someday. But Hugh did a great job. Yeah, I gotta reread book 3. I would like to use her more. I really like her character. She's important going forward. She has a really cool fight that I want to do in book 4 too. I think I started writing book 4 and 5. So maybe we could do that on Thursday. We could just see what I started writing for those, which is crazy because I think I told you like I was writing like all of everything at the same time. I would go and write like 10 pages of one thing, then 10 pages of another thing. So I actually have like pages written for book 4 and 5, even though book 3 isn't done. This was another version of Dessa that he was doing. This is supposed to be Raven, I believe. Even though she doesn't have her wings. I think this was supposed to be Raven. Book 3 is not finished. Book 3, I'm 117 pages in. It's not done. Because then I lost the publisher, like, while I was writing it, and I just stopped writing. So book 3 is not done. I have 117 pages done. That's it. This is all the mercs. This was like just a concept he was working on, but I think we were gonna turn it into Tarzan. I don't know if he ever did that. This was like some early Gerard. You know, he's got like the pointy helmet and the mace. This is Griffin. The sword is like way too cool to be wasted on Griffin, I feel. Grimoire. Hugh never like finished those. He finished the mercs though. I think Celis looks really cool. I don't know if this is like the color scheme I pictured for Marcus and Celis. Like she's got the white hair, the white skin, and the white eyes, but I would probably change the colors. Uh, but yeah, still a really cool picture, and Hugh did awesome. But early area ideas. This is what Hugh eventually did with Iria. I actually have I have this framed. I have to hang this up at some point again. This is actually really cool. I like this design a lot for Iria. This is a Leica art that he did. This is like very Final Fantasy. Like when you see Final Fantasy like concept art, this is very Final Fantasy. I actually have I have a Rhea picture in here too. Hugh drew her once also. Let's see. This is another Leica piece that he did. I think there's one more Leica one from Hugh. Yeah, this one. I have this on I printed this out on like cards. Yeah, yeah. I mean, this reminds me of his art so much. When Hugh sent this to me, I was like, dude, this looks like Final Fantasy art. It's Leica again, Marcus again. Yeah, this was how he was drawing them originally. I think the color scheme here is a little bit better. Like if it was this color scheme on that other image, I think it would have been better. And maybe like the detail on his armor too. This was meant to be Max, I believe. Here's some early Meryl. This image is so cool. So you could see like when you look at Hugh's designs, and then you look at the Coinbox Tees ones that I got commissioned. I would send these to the Coinbox Tees guys, and they would just use Hugh's concept art for them and just turn it into like their style. So like you see a lot of like the early concept art for like Meryl and Iria and stuff like that, and Dawn too. You see that like reflected in the Coinbox Tees versions. That's another Meryl. This was Meryl colored in by Hugh. This was the Mira that I got done at New York Comic Con. This is probably my favorite picture of Mira that I've ever gotten commissioned. This was at New York Comic Con. That's actually like me taking a picture because I only have it physically. Like I don't have a digital version of it. So this is actually a picture of the picture. He drew it on like graphing paper or something. But this is actually me just like taking a picture of the picture with my phone and putting it on the computer because I don't have a digital version of it because it was just a commission I got at Comic Con. This is the Hue one. I had this on I still have the mouse pad. This was on my mouse pad for like so long. I had a mouse pad made with this image on it of Mira. This is from when she like pops out of the water after her and Valak fall off they fall off like that cliff. Well, she just falls off, I believe, and then she pops out of the water. Looking all sexy like. This is Valak as the Ocean Knight. This is Oni Kirimaru. Oh, here's Raven. Who's the other girl supposed to be? This is actually a pretty cool picture of Raven. I'm not sure who the other girl is supposed to be now. Do I have the name on that one? Hold on, I gotta go back there. I gotta figure out who that was. What did I label that? This one. Oh, this is supposed to be Draconia. She looks way too she looks way too innocent here. For like a vampire who's like a villain. She looks way too like friendly there. Are you gonna give him a different title than the Ocean Knight? I don't know. I kind of like the Ocean Knight, but I'll probably end up changing that too. This Raven thing is pretty cool. Her wings are also not black though. I mean, it's all good. Celis. I don't think this was meant to be anybody specifically. Yeah, the name of the file is Sword Guy. This is supposed to be Synthro. It's very Sephiroth. Like these are tree branches, I think, but it kind of looks like the fire. It's very Sephiroth. I think this might be the only picture that I have of him. I can't think of another one. I'm gonna have to get art made of him. Where's the red hair? Yeah, I honestly might not have him with red hair. Actually, Valak was supposed to have the red hair, and he was not. And then I changed it because I wanted Valak to just have like I just wanted Valak to look very like normal. But I don't know. We'll see. It's also kind of weird that he has him like he's holding the handle of the sword is like down here. I don't know if you can see my cursor. But the sword is going up like behind him this way. Let's see what else I got in here. Yeah, he did change this to be a little bit more Tarjan-esque. Yeah, no problem, Mistral. I'm curious, I don't think there's many other. That's another Valak one. Another Valak one. This is Alencia, I believe. This is like an early Alencia take. Wyglass, obviously. I remember Hugh was never really sure how to do the he has like a dragon face on his shield. So I don't think he ever finished this one, but the design is cool. He's got like Wolverine's hair. Wyglass. This was Excalibur. Oh, Excalibur. Is that the last one? Have anything in here? Okay, this is the concept art for Mira. Gotta have dry erase board random stuff, right? This was the t-shirt. That's hard to sell because of boobies. Mira. Brachus. This has all the Coinbox T stuff. Yeah, this Brachus. This was an early idea for the cover, but we felt it was like too much going on, it wouldn't fit. It's the Mira side story. Dawn. Yeah, the Dawn one that Coinbox Tees did, I should have corrected them a bit more. Like the Dawn picture is basically like Dawn and Alencia put together. Because I don't know why there's so much fire. I don't know why she's wearing red. Like I should have been more aggressive correcting them. Plus, you know, like maybe put some pants on her. That was like one of the first commissions I got done from them, and I felt bad to be like critical. But then again, I also just let them put gigantic boobies on Iria and also no bands. So, you know, that's my fault. Although Hugh drew her with no bands also. So there's Mira as Iron Man. The Captain America Leica is probably still one of my favorite commissions of all time. Like, tell me this isn't awesome. The quality is so good. Come on. This should be my background. Oh, I can only add comments. I'm gonna make that my background. Okay. Yeah, when the Marvel's Avengers game came out, which unfortunately bombed horribly, I thought I was gonna stream it a bunch. So I got this art commissioned for the release of the game. This was like okay, this is from Winged Symphony Z was the link show I was in Final Fantasy 11, and Hugh used to design our banners on the forum for the link show. And even though I only really played Ninja and Samurai, for a while I was also playing Dark Knight. So he drew Leica as a Dark Knight for this. It's really random. It's just like it's like an evil Leica. It's pretty cool. It's Laika again. Boobies. Little chibi Laika and Mira. This was my old, also unnecessary. When I used to stream NHL a lot. So it's just Laika wearing my jersey and a hockey stick. This is the map. Meryl. This was the background that Zaraneska made for me. Mira as a DJ, I've shown this before. This was the bios. My friend Joey drew this. Yeah, this is so cool, man. Laika just looks good as Captain America. You know what I'm saying? Which one, Monster Ward? It looked nice though, this one? This one? I might bring this concept back when we hit 1,000 followers, by the way. I might just have him draw. This was supposed to be Laika over here. I might have him draw Mira and Laika on the beach for 1,000. I have that. I should have that. The heck happened? It's the Comic-Con picture again. Yeah. So this used to be my old opening. I used to have an opening, like a 5-minute opening, and this box in the middle. Oh, the evil Laika one. Yeah, the Dark Knight Laika. Yeah, it looks sick. This was my old opening, and this little box, this tiny little box, hidden behind them, would have highlights from my streams. So like, NHL goals. The reason why Mira is dressed like this, I mean, other than her top being open, was because I mostly streamed NHL and like PUBG at the time. So that's why Mira is dressed like this for PUBG and Laika's dressed like this for NHL, and all the highlights were just like highlights from my stream. And that's how I would open my streams. This would be on the screen, and it would just be like a video in the box here of like highlights. This is our AFK screen. Pez. This is Rhea art that Hugh did. This is what Rhea is supposed to look like. Her hair is more of like a lion's mane, like I described it in the story we just read. But this was supposed to be Rhea, actually. And her tail is more like a lion's tail. Why player number 19? though? 19 is what I wear. Like when I play hockey and in the games and stuff. 19 is my number. So like the idea was Laika's wearing my number. Like she's wearing my jersey basically. So that's why she's wearing 19. This is our 500 followers. You see the evolution of Mira's boobs. You see it in here too. Do they get bigger as we go? No, they're about the same size throughout. Even in the concept art. Valak. Like a Mira. Wyglass. And that's it. Yep. So I think that's pretty much it. I mean, let me see. Let me switch scenes. I'm so tired, but I was not planning to stream for this long. I wasn't planning to stream at all. I was like, if you would have asked me like 4 or 5 hours ago if I was gonna stream, I was like, no, I'm just gonna go to sleep. But then I got like a second wind, and I was like, you know what? The writing streams have been going well. We got 2 amazing raids. I'm really happy that I streamed. Yeah, the Valak one is really sick. Let me see. Let me see how much of book 4 and 5 I've done. I'm gonna take a break, yeah. I really needed to lower the heat, is what I needed to do. I have 15 pages of book 4 done. And I have... Okay, so the funny thing about book 5... I only have 10 pages of book 5 done. So the funny thing about book 5 is... book 5 was a RPG Maker idea. The concept comes from RPG Maker. I'm pretty sure I just took the concept and moved it over. So if we read Darker Days, which was the other short story that comes between book 3 and book 4, you get introduced to these two characters, Leona and Cecilia. And they are in book 5 as well. So it's like Patria hires Rhea to seek out more artifacts and stuff, and Leona and Cecilia accompany her. And then they go up against like these rival treasure hunters, and book 5 is just a bunch of like treasure hunting shenanigans. I'm just trying to skim and see if she has any funny lines. It's just Rhea like trolling him for like 10 pages. She's more like she acts more like Mira in the beginning of this. She's not just slapping people. But yeah, all right, I'm done. I'm done. Maybe we'll read this on Thursday. I definitely feel like I have to host somebody this time though. I haven't been hosting when we do the multi streams, but you know, we got a double raid. I think we need to pass the love along. Mistral, thank you for hanging out. Monsford, I appreciate you. Anybody else lurking? I appreciate it. We haven't gotten follows like that in a really long time, but thank you all for the follows. I have to make sure I go follow Coffee. Pretty sure I already follow Oracle though. So I'm just gonna open up their channels so I can do that after we end. All right, have a good night, Mistral. Trying to find the other. Does my thing not scroll up to the other raid? Okay, I'll double check that I follow Oracle. All right, let me see if there's anybody else in this section. Oh, man, I don't know if this game. I feel like I've hosted this before. Dang, maybe we won't host. There's like nobody else in this section at this time, really. All right. It's fine. I mean, we went down to like our normal viewership anyway, so it's all good. I'm probably just gonna end. I really want to go to sleep because I had a long day. But thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. I will be back tomorrow night. I think we might do a little Genshin Impact because I got a sponsorship thing from Genshin that I kind of want to do. So we might actually do Genshin Impact for the first time in forever. Have a good day, Monster. I appreciate you coming through, man. We'll be back with some more reading and writing on Thursday. And then Friday, I don't know. But thank you guys so much for hanging out. I appreciate you all, and I will see you next time. Peace.